Yeah, 2 o'clock. Welcome back into a slow grind of an afternoon. As far as the markets are concerned on a Monday, we're trying to get back to positive territory in the process of, in fact, getting back to positive territory. There's a look at the S&P 500 right now, just 0.19 away after we were down better part of 1% when we first got going this morning. A lot more green on this board since last we looked. It is tech that has been doing a lot of the heavy lifting here this afternoon. Some of these declines that we saw early on this morning in the software group within the tech sector kind of fading off a little bit. Just 1.4 left there for Adobe. Oracle, 1.7 to the downside now. It was down more than 2% at one point, where you see more positive movement from chip names. Micron leading right now, 8.5% for Micron. Been a long time since it's had a day of that nature. AMD, 3%. Western Digital down here, 7.8%. We'll tell you why coming up here. We'll talk about that Samsung note that came out overnight if you missed it. They're going to cut production, helping others maybe with a bit of a price boost if we get lower demand or lower availability. NVIDIA there, I just saw as well, 1.7. Back in positive territory as well. The entire industrial sector, outside of a few here in the transportation group, in positive territory as well. It's been that way better part of all day, but not huge moves. 1.5 through to about 3% there for Caterpillar, having a really nice day, almost 3% higher. Energy stocks are higher as well. PXD leading 6.3%. Not a huge move for crude oil, but decent size gains for some of the producers right across the entire board. Healthcare weak, then real estate weak. Utilities, communication services have been downside better part of all day, and a lot of that has to do with Alphabet, both of them. Goog and Google, both about 2% downside. Paramount with a positive note and an upgrade this morning, up nearly 3. Bit of a mixed day so far for material stocks. But yeah, just 0.19, a measly little 0.19 left in negative territory for the S&P. We'll see if we can't get back to break even here. Hope your afternoon is shaping up pretty well as we head towards the last couple of hours of the day. A ton to talk about this morning. If you joined us in the pre-market, we got you set with everything that was moving around in the pre-market, including Tesla. We'll talk about. We also had Micron on watch. We'll hear about that here in a second, along with the other chip names as well off that Samsung note. Let's jump right into it. Neil is going to lead the way this afternoon with a look at one of his trades.
Yes, sir. Trade of the day is going to be on Micron, as always, brought to you by Day Trade the World. Check that QR code below. But, a lot of times you have a big level and you just have to wait for it to come in. Now, on the earnings, Micron did have bad earnings, but it was a huge rally to the upside on those earnings, and it got to 64 in the daily. And that's where everything kind of sets up. Big level. I'm showing you a bit of the daily chart. You have a double top. If you go back further, it's actually even more significant at that 64 than this gives it credit for. But I'm showing you the double top. That was on earnings. Failing that break in there. Got a couple lines there at 64, 64.5. So you want to look for a failure at that particular price. Had the news this morning, Samsung with the cuts. That's going to bode well for the recovery in the DRAM market. That had us gapping to the upside on Micron. Now, if you like a short level up there, you can't really be fighting it. Yeah, I think it can pull back off of that price, but at the open, it's already starting to fall back in. It was at 62, tested 61. Not going to short down there. I don't see any setups that are going to work for me shorting 61, 62 when the level's up at 64. However, when it does make that move to the upside, patiently wait for it. Does it get to 64 here? No. Stalls out at about 63.7, 75, and then pulls back in and puts in the lower highs. Now, this is the test of that level around that 64. It never gets there, but it now has resistance underneath. So I know I have to cover that 64 up top. I know I've got the lower high. Allow it to bounce, and once it fails, makes a lower high, start shorting it. So about 63, 35, sometimes we're getting 40 to 45, but that's that line in the sand. We've been shorting off that level all day long. First move off of it is generally speaking going to be the best one. We shorted, get some out at VWAP, hold on the break of that low, able to get a buck out of it. Wait till it retraces. Do not short on the way up. Wait till it gets to our price. Reload, scalp. Do not get the touch underneath VWAP this time. So a bit of a change here. Don't get the flush underneath VWAP. Allow it to test the high again without reloading. Okay, fails it. Get the trade underneath VWAP. So again, we've covered a little bit more. We've made some more on the trade. And that's the point at which I say I'm going to back and reload. Important there because I wasn't really sure if this is going to be a strong move and whether it was worth the reload given that higher low. It flushed off it again. Once I reload this time, however, now you are getting higher lows. So it becomes more of a scalp trade. Sure, you want to take your buck, you want to take your bigger gains, 40, 50 pennies on a stock like this is pretty good. $1 is even better, obviously. But once we get above these higher lows, it becomes a pure scalp into VWAP the entire way. So you're waiting for that 35 to 40 level. You're getting out in the low 63s, only taking it in at the best prices. Eventually, all good trades are going to come to an end. And when it takes out that high, I just get out. Now, it could set up in the rest of the afternoon. We're still beneath that 64 level. You could see a rejection at 64 and look for the short again. But that's a clear case of finding a resistance zone underneath your key price, only shorting that level, and then understanding how much profit you can and can't take based on the pattern coming in. So you can have this all day long at times, but it requires a lot of patience. That's why it's your trade of the day. You had to wait for the move. Don't make the move. Participate in the move after it happens at the key price level. That's why Micron's your trade of the day, brought to you by Day Trade the World.
List this morning as well. If you joined us in the pre-market, we touched on it right out of the gate. Coming off that Samsung note, as we mentioned, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you grab that every single day. It was #1 on that list this morning was Micron. I wanted to show you this to kick things off. Here's the DXY, first of all. Trying to get back to the upside on the daily chart. It's, there we go. Trying to get back to the upside here on the daily chart after testing these lows from back in January last week, anyways, to the downside. We're trying to bounce. Here's the 2-year, huge gap to the upside. We're right at 4 right now on the dot for the 2-year, same story, 10-year, 3.41. So yields higher, dollar higher. To kick off the new week. This was what we were talking about this morning. Both Western Digital and Micron benefiting the most from this note, where Samsung comes out, it was actually Friday, but they restated it this morning, with a meaningful, quote unquote, meaningful cut to chip production, which was kind of out of nowhere and not expected by the overall market. But a number of analysts, including Citi, down here highlighting the fact that less chips from someone such as Samsung would mean if demand stays the same, maybe prices tend to go up. So we're seeing a bump in both Micron and Western Digital. It's been a long time since Micron was up 8%. WDC, guys, 7.5 right now.
Yeah.
You see the runners, right? They're happening.
It's impressive. And look, and the thing about it is, and one of the reasons why I was doing it as the trade of the day is, look, sometimes something happens that you weren't necessarily expecting. Like once it was rolling over, I kind of figured, okay, it's just giving up the gap. There's not going to be much to be seen here. I don't know what we're going to be able to do with this trade. It's pretty much over. And I'm not saying it was done or anything. It's just, it felt like you were getting the classic gap fill. You're not going to short off that level. And all you can do, if you don't have a structured long, is just wait and be patient and go for that short. It ended up being that, look, Micron had a strong move up there. You saw what I like to do with it, but it sort of ended up being that AMD, which can't say that I'm still in this one. I can cancel that bid at 93. Don't really need that anymore. AMD did a similar, was grinding to the downside, found a double bottom. I wanted it breaking 93. Like that's the channel. You can wait for the key prices on a situation like that, but I had the 93 break, played it into 30s, played it into 60s, and then trailed it out here. And as usual, sometimes you trail out and it doesn't look very good in the end. Got up to 95.5, still going up 3% here today. Maybe that's the bias of refreshing that short over and over again in a Micron that got to me, but could have still been in this AMD. It never gave you that chance, or gave me that chance to get back in and tighten up and close enough to that 93 level, unfortunately. But off to the races, AMD here. In the chip space, big reversals across the board, whether you're looking at NVIDIA, AMD, Micron to an extent kind of held the channel, but a 3% move is nothing to sniff at here on advanced micro devices.
And even if you have this move in Micron, which is now north of 8%, what you got to factor in now is how Micron's going to play the next maybe $3 to the upside. Because one, we're at the top end of a multi-month high here. Sits around 64 to 66. So there's quite the move to the upside. or today's move gets you right into that top end of the range. And what happens when you break a range that's multi-month? Well, it can get very aggressive very quickly. We're going all the way back to about early July into August of last year where we put in this top, right, around this price point. Now, there was a little base going back into April and May of last year as well. So that's why I think for me, it's not going to be necessarily 65, but probably closer to 66 where the break point could happen. But we're at 63.40 right now and quite the move. So possibly even tomorrow or Wednesday, if we keep up at this pace, we can be seeing those prices. And you know when we see those prices, there's going to be some fireworks. Definitely keep an eye on Micron. Today is just the beginning of a possibility of a multi-day, multi-month setup in some fashion where you can actually work with either the breakout to the upside or even a range high short and try to take it back down to the 50s. But for now, just keep an eye on Micron as it's continuing its run to the upside.
All right, let's go on to Tesla. A number of individual headlines, including this one that came out over the weekend for Tesla. Elon saying on Twitter a couple of times, talking about production being ramped up both in Texas and at the Nevada facility. They also were talking about a possible additional facility in Shanghai to help supplement the batteries coming out of California. So a lot on tap, I guess, for Tesla. And oh yeah, they also announced their 5th price cut of the year for Tesla today.
Yeah, and guess what's almost green? What was, I want to say, the biggest dog? Well, maybe it wasn't the biggest dog this morning. At certain points, it certainly felt like it was the weakest name of the regular trading names we put out there in the big cap names. And Tesla, off the bottoms, it never got to 175. I know this morning I like the 180 level, but there were other shorting opportunities right at the open that we can get into as we go over reviews. So when 180 happened, I missed that initial move, didn't want to chase it. It never got to 75, and then just off to the races. If anything, it looks like that 180's turned into a bit of a support level. However, it's not over yet. 187 we ended the week last week with 187 being a pretty interesting resistance zone. And once you get above 185, I think that comes into play and you could have some trouble chewing through that. As I say, it's even Apple. We're talking about Apple next, but that's right back up at a level that's been holding the entire time. I'm not going to wait for Apple. We'll just talk about it right now because just got another reload. Apple underneath 162 was good short this morning, yada, 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 bounced off 160, we got out there. But look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times it's tested 161.5 here with the 65 as a stop. I don't know if this is going to be the time that it stops working, but able to scalp some out there, has not flushed back into VWAP, but could be breaking any second now. I wanted to get to that because I could get stopped out in a couple of pennies here, and I'm short, essentially at 50, risking 15 pennies. I've been getting out when it gets to just better than 1-to-1 and then a little bit lower. But Apple is trying to press, just like Tesla is right now.
Yeah, Tesla being a long, that was a great possible trade. We were keeping an eye on it. So we're like, okay, above 81, possible long, below 75, possible short, but both of them had to be timed with the futures. We never got the timing right with Tesla and the futures, but at the same time, man, if you look at the daily on this, on Tesla, the fact that it bounced where it did, if we can just keep going a little bit more, meaning we're at 185, we just need to get into the 190s. So another $4 or $5 in Tesla, we might actually see a possibility of north of 200 here because of the way it's setting up. Yes, it's going sideways, but at the same time, it's been underneath that 190, 187 area for the last few days. Now we're starting to bounce back into it, and I think this is going to be where it's really going to get tested here as we come back into that gap. If I show you, it's right here. It's going to be this. Let me remove this so you guys can see it a little bit better. It's this zone right here. We just need to clear that to the upside, and if we can get past that, I think there's a real chance for 200 here. It is coming back into that, so fade possibly. You never know with Tesla. That's the thing. It may look like one move, and then all of a sudden it does a complete reversal. Futures was fairly negative. Tesla was, for the most part, negative when the futures were stabilizing. And then when the futures actually just kind of start trickling down even more, Tesla did a complete reversal. And then here it is now, they're both kind of running up at the same time. So they've all kind of taken their own paths, but they've ended up in the same situation here as they run up into resistance as we move on towards 185 on Tesla, and the futures moves towards 41.30 to the upside as well. All
right, just watching Netflix here quickly before we get to Apple. There was this note that came out during lunchtime about a animated Stranger Things spinoff coming to Netflix apparently, but just went green, or barely. There we go. Back to positive territory. Nice day highs, anyway, session highs for Netflix right now on decent volume. This was a note, on the other hand, that pointed to Apple as potentially going to be the worst off when it comes to a dip in global PC shipments for Q1, all ahead of earnings season to start this week. Obviously, with the big banks, we've got to wait a couple more weeks before we get into the bigger names in tech, but maybe preparing us for a bit of a dip for tech earnings.
Animated Stranger Things. Like, they can't even, like...
Let's squeeze that money, man.
You squeeze it. Like, you don't even wait around for things to be out in the ether long enough before you're doing spin-offs. Like, they're making a live-action Moana. Like, oh, really? Okay. I mean, my kid will love it, but...
How else is The Rock going to cross $1 billion in net worth if he doesn't get that done? Come on now.
There's no creativity left, man. Like, it's just, let's just remake a movie before it's even a decade old. Let's just do that because we have no ideas anymore. Don't get me wrong, it's probably going to be kick-ass, and I'll probably watch it anyway, so just don't listen to anything I'm talking about, just a grumpy old man. Apple, I just talked about it. I got stopped out there. It did just break that 160, 165, so very quickly, this is what we came into looking for. 162 and just beneath it was that line in the sand. So I went for the long early, got stopped out. That's the green and red right there. And then at the open, it then sets up pretty nicely. So I waited for... Look, it was down at 161.30. I wasn't going to chase it down there for the short. You get stopped out. But once it opened up, it tried to test back up to 62. It never got above. We shorted that, got out of it when it bounced off 160. That was essentially the good trade for me on Apple. And then just now, it just started breaking back out. Was scalping it in the afternoon or early afternoon there, and it just broke out of this channel, kind of like a 50-cent range that it broke out of to the upside. Now, still beneath 162. There might be another short up there at 62 for me, but I kind of want to be patient waiting for it to get to that price. Crazy wick in there. That's some dark pool or whatever. But that 162 is a big line, and we're not above it yet. So I don't want to be thinking longs unless this thing is holding above 162. Might happen, but I'm not there just yet. The ES is trying to go green, and I mean, it could be there any second now. The NASDAQ 0.2%. Apple doesn't have to be green for this to trend, for the market trending to the upside, but that 162 certainly is the level that I need to have it clear. Otherwise, it's still set up for a potential rollover at these levels.
I mean, Apple, you already mentioned about 162 being the inflection point. We were looking at this the entire time, right? 162, I even have the alerts here. You see this? Let me remove this, and you guys can see it on the side. Above 162, timed well with the futures would be a long. Below 160, timed well with the futures would be a short. What does Apple do? It sits right in the middle all day, even with the futures now above 30 to the upside. Apple has yet to break through that 162. So, I mean, there's nothing really to be done on Apple just yet. Even if it breaks now, the question is, why is it taking so long for Apple to get going to the upside? Obviously, relative weakness is a problem. On a day like today, where you're seeing strength in the index early on, now carrying into the afternoon, and you're starting to see some of these sluggish names get into possible long territories, these are the names I would pass up on a day like today. It's late in the day. Yes, 162 would have been great, but earlier, when the index was weak, that's when you want these names to go, because then you have a real chance of actually getting to go to the upside. Now, it's being dragged and pulled to the upside. I mean, it really doesn't want to go, but it's being forced to kind of situation here. So I would just leave Apple alone. 162, yes, but let's come back to it tomorrow and see if it's going to fall in line with the index and what it's doing tomorrow. But I think Apple, we're just going to have to let that one pass for today, but we're still going to keep an eye on these levels tomorrow.
All right, let's touch on Block here once again. Ends up being a bit of a tough trade today, a little choppy, kind of bouncing around. Basically, the lows from back on Thursday ends up being a pivot here. We're trying to get higher right now, but there was a downgrade this morning pointing to this short report that came out over the past couple of weeks, singling out some of their accounting practices and so forth as we head towards our earnings as well for Block here. We are trying to get higher, as I mentioned, but ends up being a bit of a choppy mess here for SQ today.
Yes, sir. Someone challenged me to a duel again.
Oh, no, you're going to lose that coin.
I don't know. So, by the way, we have a bet in the chat. it's like, will NVIDIA close 275 or above or below? I haven't made my choice just yet. I will do so in a few seconds. But I keep getting these, every now and then we get these challenges you can throw down individually versus somebody. And Bears versus Bulls beat me last week when I was here. So I might have to get that back. But Square, you're right, Brennan, it was tricky. And I was looking for the bottom break. Again, underneath that low from Thursday, I should say, under 66, and kind of underneath that 65.80. That's the pocket I shorted. It broke the low. I was like, okay, we're going to the downside. I reloaded it, then stopped out. It then rejected beneath 67, so I just simply re-entered on the lower high, and that was working back into 66. But now that's starting to challenge higher. I'm just going to be out if this takes out this 40 area and wait for 67. The continuation just was never really there, so it's set up pretty well for me. Just no continuation downside. The market catching a bid is obviously a large part of this factor. You know, anytime that happens, it's going to be hard for something to fall apart, and that's why it's sitting here down 2.5%. Could be in play underneath 66 again tomorrow. So I'll be right back looking at this. If we're still beneath 67, I might look for the same breakdown trade. Since that short seller report, like you've seen the bounce, you've seen it curl at 70. I'm just looking for like that break of this support and then get like a few multiple dollar move out of it. Felt like it was going to happen today. Ultimately, not terrible. We're able to make something back. So it really is more of a flat day than anything else on Square. But I am here for when it makes that test, if it makes that test. Breaking beneath 66, getting through 65. So much room to run. I mean, this went down like $20 in 2 days on that short seller report. So, you know, I do think if it does make another rally, not rally, but another flush to the downside, I want to be there for it. But you couldn't fight against that market bounce today too much.
All right, what are we talking about? I'm just trying to reset the position board because I do have a position, but I had to
BAC.
I had to do BAC, something that wasn't going to move too aggressively and I wasn't going to lose.
Oh, I thought maybe you were actually.
Yeah, but HD is the position that I really want to talk about. Let's just deal with BAC. Don't even count that as my real position because it's not. But okay, what are we talking about? Square. I mean, we talked about Square this in the pre-market today. I was like, this is going to be a very, very slow mess, and I don't want to get involved in this because when you look at the daily. This is what you're dealing with. Even if you decide to go for the long, you've got a limited upside in terms of what you want to do with Square. So in terms of intraday trades, is this a priority name? Absolutely not. Is it in the news? Sure. Could you maybe capture a little bit? I'm sure, so someone out there, I'm sure saw the opportunity for $1 or so from 66.50 to 65.50 and chose to take the trade. There's many different ways of approaching a trade. The way I would like to position into it, I don't see the way I could possibly get into something like this, so I just didn't even bother looking at this name. But multi-day sideways action usually leads to, at some point, a breakout, and I think the breakout is what you want to look at. Whenever it does happen, just be aware there is an overhead trend line that goes back days, and if you are going to go for the long, you're going against that one here. You see the trend, not perfect trend line, but just know that the trend is to the downside, even if you go for the long. But when we do go up, just be aware that there is a trend line overhead, so possible resistance on the breakout if it does happen. Brendan.
All right, we saw a relative strength right out of the gate this morning from the Russell 2000 specifically. Remember, that's where a lot of the regional banks are housed within the Russell. Here's the FRC, guys, just trying to go green as we speak on the day it did there briefly. But back downside, trying to test 14 anyways, which was this level from back on Thursday. Had the big gap to the downside. The SEC filing comes out on Friday or Thursday regarding their dividend halt. So back higher we go for FRC once again.
Yes, sir. And I'm glad I decided to short space and not this one. FRC, if it gets to $15, I think that's been the level, and I was kind of waiting around for that, or maybe it would have tested lower. It looked like maybe at the open. Let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, so it looked like at the open, you had a chance that you were going to get down, break down, get into the 12 area, which had been a little bit better of a bounce spot. I wasn't all for 13. I just sort of felt like down here, like 11s and 12s was kind of the zone where I'd rather have the long. So it never really set up for me. If it breaks the high, I don't know that I want to be involved in the breakout. I paid for locate, so if it gets to 15, I just want to short that one. But just to go to a couple of things that I am in, and shout out to everyone in the chat. I feel like it was multiple people this morning that were like, hey, Virgin Galactic's up for what? I don't know why it was up, to be honest with you. But made a big strong move up. It got to 350. Here is set 350 on the Virgin Orbit day. easy lower high in sympathy when it was down. It gets right into 350. I mean, sometimes it's not that difficult, right? Like, it shows you the top rejecting 350 at 351, then puts a lower high in at 49, so you can short 48. I mean, really? And then flushes down to 35s. I still have some. Actually, if it gets down to the 30s, I'll probably take more out. And I will reload it one time in front of 350. Got out half and just looking to reload it for maybe a little bit more in front of that 350 level. But that's a short I like. That was in a GFAI long as well, but that's kind of dead right now. FRC, again, it has to climb. It's a 15 bucks. That's the big level. Only trade at the big levels. You don't have to take every single setup. Good long if you manage to grab it, but I like 12s better than where that one bounced.
Yeah, not touching this. We already talked about these types of names. When they're hot is when you want to play. When they go cold, and FRC was a big mover in the middle of last month, and now it's gone quiet. It's very, very choppy. If you continue to trade names like this, when the reason for moving has kind of dissipated a little bit, you're going to get chopped up. And right now, I'm not seeing a whole lot. What I would do is, though, I would set the alerts off 15, like Neil said. Set the alert out, leave it be, and whenever it crosses, it'll let you know. And then that's when you want to get involved, and you have the better probability of a trade like that, a breakout trade, or even a volatility expansion at that point. But until that happens, I would just leave it alone. You're going to save yourself some money if you avoid situations like this, because these are so hot and cold, and when they're hot is when you want to get involved. You can't just hold on and hope that they get hot again. So I would just leave it be and kind of come back to it, because there will be either this or something else that now turns into a high volatile situation, and that's going to provide the volatility and the volume that you want to trade the same way that FRC did for a few days at the beginning or the middle of last month. So for now, FRC not on the table for potential, but 15 maybe. We might be looking at this again north of 15.
I just saw both FedEx and UPS. That was all for the list that we had. But FedEx and UPS just popping up on UPS or USPS, I should say, proposing some price increases. So both of these downside right now, FDX and UPS. A heads up, guys.
We don't really have too much in the way of economic numbers in the last couple of days, so you look for some of these bellwether stocks out there to give you an idea. Just keep in mind, we talked about this in the morning show, you can have days where you have a little bit lighter volume, where you're anticipating everyone's waiting around for Wednesday maybe. We get CPI, we get the Fed minutes as well. But you do want to make sure you're trading on key price levels. I want to get that one out there, because a lot of people ask, what do you do with a day like today? There's nothing wrong with being patient. If it's a tight range, scalp the range. If you're waiting for a key price level, only wait for that. Only get in at that price. That was the idea with Micron. Now I'm going to give a shout out to everybody, because you'll see I am in AMC still. It wasn't the good trade that everybody else I think had this morning off that. Whether you had at the open, I don't know, or the $5 level was a good one for AMC today. And if you had the $5 trade, if you come to my chart here, I was maybe too patient. Kind of. Look, when it made this breakout at 510, I didn't want to participate. I was kind of looking for those longs at better prices. That was the point to join it either on the break or maybe back here in the consolidation. I waited till it established the bottom at 515 and went long at, creatively enough at 516. Bottom's at 15, I go long at 16 on the dip. It has not broken the high of the day. I took some out on the way up, but not a heck of a lot. There's overhead resistance at 550. So while I'm going to be out if it can't hold 10s, I still think it has a shot to run, but the volume's starting to taper off as well, like a lot of names. And I forgot to mention Tupperware, but Tupperware is starting today, it's my new Bed Bath & Beyond. Huge gap down, delisting, showed you the range, $1.55. Short to lower high, 152 in front of 155. Give it to 140, clear almost a 10% move. And then when it flushed the bottom, take a couple legs out, it got to the quarters, got to 121, but has made a bit of a bid. So it might not get to $1 today, but it's probably headed to $1 at some point, and then it could be gone altogether. So if that happens, who knows. But I like this every single time. I'll short the pops. For now, the level is 150 to 155 on Tupperware. So when it makes a move into that level, I wait for it to get up there and then short it. Always do so on one of these dead cats, only if it shows you a level. Like if there's no level out there that's pretty obvious to short it, you're just sort of standing in front of a possible squeeze train. But it worked for 2 or 3 weeks on Bed Bath & Beyond. On SI, Silvergate, it worked for a little bit as well. And you just don't want to miss out on these opportunities when they're there for you. Now, speaking of opportunities, Here's Tesla. I mean, it just turned around at 185. I keep thinking 187 has got to be the level. But it's peaking out at this 185 and slowing down at a pretty obvious price. Look, it closed at 185, so it's not a completely random number. It closed on Thursday at 185. 87 might be obvious resistance, but that 85 could be a shorting opportunity for us there. So I'm going to have a quick look at that one. I know that's also our poll, which I said I was going to vote on. Oh, sorry, NVIDIA's our poll. 275 on NVIDIA. I got to make my bet on that one because it feels to me that right now the market's making tops. Like I had a couple of like tight stop loss trades on NVIDIA shorts, and I like the AMD long better for whatever reason. 93 is like a little bit better, but it feels like we could be rolling back over here. So I'm going to probably go for the south side of this bet. We're going to close it in a half an hour though, because we don't want people betting at the last second when it's obvious.
I will say, Neil, though, Bears and Bulls try to challenge you or duel you,
Oh, I didn't see
and
it.
then you didn't accept it. He got so bored that he started challenging himself. Yeah, he's dueling himself for 200 points apparently.
What if I just hit accept?
You should no, it's too late. It was a 2-minute window. You should challenge him actually.
Well, it's too much effort to.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure what the command is, and I don't want to get too distracted with it.
All
The
right.
other day at the close, I was telling Arun this. Like the other day at the close, I wasn't in any trades. There was like 5 minutes left, and all I was doing was like watching how my challenges were going back and forth, because we're all like, I don't know, like it's weird. Like you
Bet the
shouldn't
man.
care
He's
that much
waiting.
about these.
Bet the man.
You shouldn't care about these little points there. Oh, there's the duel right now. Okay,
There you
I'll
go.
accept.
See?
So he just
10
duel for
points.
10. I accept. I'll probably like instantly lose because I think I lost every single one of these before. Come on, come on, come on.
How long does it
I don't know,
take?
I'm not going to sit around
All right,
forever.
whatever, anyways.
Whatever. When it happens, I'll let you guys know. But NVIDIA kind of in a bit of a channel up here at the top, 275. It looks like it's obvious resistance. I think I can work off that. Square short is the one that I'm looking to reload right now. I think that's the one I want to get in there. But there's also, look, that AMD feels a little overextended as well. If you I'm pulling up the daily, you're not going to find anything too obvious. But when you get to the 15 on AMD, like if it were to turn, like this zone is in the next dollar or so, like that 96 and the 97 area, where you had a bunch of chop and just slow grind to the downside, then fell apart. Like essentially fell apart at 95.5 with a bunch of chop above it. So if it's going to turn, I think it's somewhere in this range. That's kind of why I feel like we're going to get this shorting opportunity, and the chips have been leading the way. Steve G was asking, like, how the heck is the Qs about to go green with Microsoft and Apple lagging so much? I mean, the chip names are beastly today. That's pretty much why. So if we're going to roll over and not turn green in the overall market, two things happen. One, the chips give a bit of a pullback. Two, Apple doesn't continue and break that 162. I mean, obviously, Microsoft's at some key levels as well. I don't know if that ever set up for you for the long.
For what?
In,
Microsoft?
Microsoft.
No, because the way that Microsoft broke back to the upside, I had already picked up Home Depot. Shout out to Wallace for Home Depot, called out earlier. But that one was just, you had to pick and choose whether it was going to be Apple or Microsoft or something, and then Microsoft just took too long for me, so I just went with Home Depot. And once I'm committed to certain names, like Home Depot's a fairly thinner name too in the space, so I don't want to commit too much risk trying to get into everything. So we are writing that one out. At EBIX, for anyone wondering on the update, let's go to my screen, guys. And we're fully out of EBIX. This was a fade from this morning up here when it ran into 17 and change. Faded out. First target was 15.5, and then it kind of looked like it was rotating, so I just walked away from the rest of it, just around 15. So we averaged out nicely from this morning's short. So this was the only trade, I believe. This was the only trade in the morning I had that was a short. And then Wallace, shout out, he sent in a super chat for Home Depot.
Where's Wallace at?
I don't know.
String. Where's Wallace
You gotta
at?
stop, man. I can't keep up with this. I can't remember something from like 30 years ago.
Oh, come on, man.
No.
You don't know Wallace?
No, I can't. Oh, you're talking about The Wire, right?
Of course I'm talking about The Wire.
But I'm just saying. Well, that's not
okay,
30
but you
years
knew,
ago,
so
but
you knew
still.
the reference, but you just didn't.
I can't put it all together. Like you guys know way too much. You guys remember way too much pop culture stuff and movies and shows and all this stuff. I remember The Wire. I just can't like. As soon as you said Stringer, I was like, okay, now I know.
That's why I said String.
All right, so I know that part.
Watch The Wire, people.
I got to rewatch The Wire.
Look,
apparently.
man, if you've never seen The Wire, then you are missing out on. Everyone talks about like, oh, Game of Thrones is the greatest like written series of all time. It doesn't. It pales in comparison to The Wire. Like you could learn, like you learn about, you learn about economics, like human nature, social hierarchies, and all that nonsense, and how they apply like across the board. That show is absolute genius. I don't care who you are. Like you can get something out of it. Every season's just another layer. It just gets more and more brilliant.
The way they made that show was ridiculous. That was really good.
And the actors that came out of that ish, like you like Michael B. Jordan, I mean, Wallace, right? You like Idris Elba, Stringer Bell, like absolute legend. Rest in peace, Omar, obviously. But so a couple of things here, just to go back. Just overrated. Oh no, don't start with me now. Don't start with me now about overrated on The Wire.
He
I'm
stands
one of those,
by The Wire, man.
I'm one of those, like, I've seen it so many times, like, each time I watch, I feel like it gets better, but like, to each their own. I'll be the first person to tell people, like, yo, do you and like what you like, man. I'm the last person that just, because this show was popular or because this music everyone likes, then I'm going to feel like it's good. I'm like, hell to the no, man. Like, I have no problems if, like, if 99% of the world likes something and I don't like it, I'm not going to pretend that I do. I've just never really been that kind of a person. Sometimes it's not, you probably should, but I'm not that guy. So if you don't like The Wire, you don't like The Wire. I'm just telling you I think it's the greatest show out there. You guys know my bias. So two things. One, can't seem to reload space. It misses me by 5 cents. So it might just be that I need to short it here at like 45, 46 instead of waiting for it to get to 50. That's first thing. Square as well. Almost a similar story, hit enter too fast, and now I'm on NM. There we go. I keep trying to short off these highs, and just again, it doesn't want to break higher. I'm aiming to short it in the 30s instead of waiting at that 40 level. However, I'm not sure we have to make that same kind of a compromise when it comes to Tesla. So Tesla just made another pop to 185 here. You can see there, just popped to 185. So that level still looks pretty valid. Now Tesla, shorting it 30 or 40 cents away is obviously different on Tesla than it is on Square because your risk to reward is always going to be a bit of a difference. So when it made that wick high just now and did not break out above 185, but not above a new high there, 185.10 still the same high. So I now like that short. Another test of the high. This is the consolidation. I just grabbed it at 70s. I'd probably take more if I could get 80 to 85. But if it never breaks up there, that's just perfectly fine by me. So at these levels in the futures, almost at green, I'd rather be looking for some little pullbacks because I know where the continuation plays are. Like if Apple can actually get above 162 and hold, I like that opportunity for a long, to be sure. Dan Emmons, the game is rigged, but you can't lose if you don't play. That is, I absolutely love that. It's so true. Like if you don't like something, you ain't got to do it. That's the best thing about trading. If you don't like the market that day, you don't have to trade in it. And Steve G, I am like woefully behind on The Mandalorian because that's a show that I watch with my wife. So I only get to watch that when we have time to both sort of give it that 45 minutes to watch an episode. So I'm literally like 3 episodes into Mandalorian. I also lost my ish when I saw the Ahsoka trailer because I'm a huge Star Wars person and I won't get into it because it's Ahsoka is one of the cooler characters. Okay. Actually has a really cool arc in a story, which is nice because after Rey and anyway, don't even get me started about the. Anyway, I can't because I hate those so much, like the new ones. Like Ahsoka's a real character, and they've got live action. It's gonna be absolutely amazing when it comes in August. So I'm now into Tesla, 184.75. High of the day's at 185.10. 35 cents plus slippage worth of risk. Once I get 1-to-1, I'll start taking it out.
All right, this market acting a little funky up here, and Home Depot is starting to lose traction a little bit. It might be time to call it a day on Home Depot. It had a chance to get going. It was late to the party on that breakout when the futures were down lower, and now that the futures are struggling up here, Home Depot is starting to find sell-side action coming through that 291.50. I don't like it. I think I'm going to take my win here. It's up right now. It's up 26 cents. And the only thing I worry about when the market's struggling like this and Home Depot's already starting to kind of work in and out of these 91 halves, we might actually just run into the end of the day and kind of come back to this trade tomorrow. Because although the level's there, it's just one of those things where it may actually just take a full day to recover and then kind of reset this up. Let's take a look at Home Depot. I've walked away from Home Depot, by the way. Home Depot, good breakout. It's just timing of the day versus what the futures are doing. I would just wait a little bit here on the pullback. We've got a buy zone waiting. It could come in tomorrow, but for now, I just kind of want to get out of the way in case we do end up coming back down. Brendan, I believe, is waiting for us right now with a special guest.
Hey guys, yeah, we'll keep an eye on the market here. It'll take a bit of a pause as volume kind of drying up a little bit. As far as futures are concerned, it's Monday afternoon. That means Danielle Shea is here, VP of Options over at Simpler Trading, with a kind of a look out into what is to come this week. Great to see you as always, Danielle. It's a busy week, busy week, including earnings to come at the end of the week. Friday morning, we'll kick it off once again. We have to wait a couple weeks, as I was saying when we came on, as to get into the big names, the tech names, but banks at least are here. As far as the overall group is considered, there was that note this morning, we touched on it a little bit, from JP Morgan, looking at quarter over quarter, investment side earnings expected to be to the downside a little bit. What are your thoughts here? I know you're not typically a bank trader, but it's what we have to deal with this week. So give me your thoughts here on JP Morgan specifically, but the banks ahead of earnings.
So JP Morgan is my favorite out of the banks. If I'm ever going to be long a bank, I have to be long JP Morgan because it's usually the best one. You know, I have a couple different thoughts here. Number one, Jamie Dimon, he has already come out and he had some really positive notes that he mentioned over the weekend. He had a couple different TV segments, and, you know, he even said himself, he said, hey, you know, I think it's possible for the banks to have good earnings this quarter. Some of them, they can really vary a lot. So, I mean, I think that was really positive. I enjoyed his positive spin on that, because here's the thing, is that these executives have a whole lot of negative to talk about, okay? But if they can't manage to pull out anything positive, it's going to have a really negative impact on, you know, the market as a whole's outlook for earnings this quarter. What I do with the banks is I look at the banks, I see what the banks say, and then I take that reaction in mind, and then I say, okay, is that weighing down the market in a negative way? If so, let's look for some weak stocks to short going into tech earnings. Or if, you know, bank executives can manage a little bit of positivity, we might end up seeing a really positive relative strength tech earnings rally. And so that's the way that I generally look at it.
Yeah, and we touched on that. It's funny you say that. We touched on that the last earnings season as well, in the sense that they're almost, it seems like they're preparing us for what is to come. If they you know, talk really, really bad right now, and then it comes out a little bit better than that, everything's fine, right? So we'll see. Yeah, Friday morning, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citigroup to come. And then into next week, we get a whole slew of other typically financial related earnings names as well. But as we said, the heart of earnings season not going to come for a couple of weeks here. Tesla with a ton of headlines over the weekend. Again, Elon was doing Elon things on Twitter, talking about production being ramped up right across the board from Nevada through to Texas. And then they're already hiring apparently in Mexico, and they haven't even broken ground on that factory yet. So the bigger headline, however, was this price cut, the fifth, in fact, for the year. That led to a couple analysts kind of pointing downside as far as margins are concerned, obviously, for this quarter. What do you think here as far as Tesla is concerned?
So, you know, in the beginning when Tesla first started falling, I was still pretty positive about it because, you know, the news, they always like to pick at Tesla for really anything, right? And so it's pretty typical that we will see bad news coming out around Tesla. And so normally I look at it and I say, hey, you know, bad news is usually a good opportunity to buy. But I really don't like the downside momentum in the way that it's, you know, continuing to trade, because it's just not finding a low. That's my big problem right now with it. So as far as, you know, where can it find a low? I mean, I'm looking at the March lows. That's kind of a pretty key area of support. I mean, if we break through there, then it's going to have a hard time continuing higher. Right now, I think, you know, around the 180, 185 price point, you have some pretty decent price support. So we're going to see if that zone can hold. But, you know, I don't like the way that it's traded over the course of the past couple days. And you know why? Is because Tesla is normally one of the best stocks that will rally prior to earnings. And that will happen regardless of what news is coming out. And so I think it's a bad omen on the market overall. My long Tesla trades from a week or two ago didn't work. And so right now I'm just looking to see if Tesla can hold a low and maybe trade higher before earnings, but I'm not seeing signs of it yet.
Yeah, doing its best job right now anyways to try and get green on the session. But as you mentioned, kind of in a tricky spot here if you go out to a higher time frame as we saw there. I want to mention the overall market here. We can tie this into Tesla in the sense that the NASDAQ has been leading as far as this most recent rally is concerned. We've flipped once again as far as what is to be expected from the Fed coming up in May. Now back to maybe another quarter-point hike to come after that non-farm number on Friday was back to the upside again, ever so slightly, but higher than expected again. 60% last week towards a pause. We're back to 60% here, sitting here right now this afternoon. Towards another quarter-point hike. As far as the overall market is concerned, pretty cautious, I'd say, going into this earnings.
Yes, definitely. The market's pretty cautious here. And I mean, I think that the fact that the Fed raised last month, even though the bank crisis was ongoing, is a pretty good sign for what's to come. Because I mean, that was the time where, they could have said, hey, guess what? This is the end of this cycle, and they didn't. So, I mean, I think at this point, we do have to expect another quarter-point hike. And I think that right here in the place that we're at with the market, what we need is exactly what you stated before. You said that a lot of companies have already come out and said, hey, earnings aren't going to be that good this quarter. And that's exactly what we need, because when they do that, they kind of set the tone for people to expect it to be bad. And then when earnings aren't as bad as expected, that actually leaves room for the market to rally. So that's actually the scenario that I'm hoping for going into this quarter. Everybody anticipates that they're not going to be great. They're better than expected. And hopefully we can get a little bit more of a seasonal rally, because let me tell you, if we don't, after April comes May, and May is usually bearish anyway. So if we can't get an April rally, then that sets the tone for an even more bearish May than what I would be looking for, in the other situation.
And a lot of people continue to point to the fact, and we saw on that chart there, we continue to drift higher. That was the Qs, but same story. We continue to drift higher overall on the daily chart on, relatively low volume down here. So the move down was on heavy volume, and then the move back up is on lighter volume. So goes, kind of emphasizes that same point a little bit. Let's stay in this group or in this area anyways. Google comes out last week announcing their I/O event, which, I mean, I thought all of these companies typically do this in the fall, but here we get Google's event to come in May, coming up May 10th. So speaking of one of the biggest names in the NASDAQ, Google in a kind of a tricky spot here as well.
Google and most of the NASDAQ stocks are in a tricky spot just because they're up against that resistance and they've had such a strong rally. I mean, I think Google's a great company. It's a great stock, and I would love to see it trade higher. I think that the I/O event is one reason why it could, because it would be, a positive bullish catalyst. That being said, any kind of events like that usually are, buy up into the event and then usually sell after the event. With Google in particular, I would love to see it get up into those August highs, because it's done a pretty good job of breaking a lot of different resistance zones. I do own Google stock. So, I'm a shareholder, and I do think that Google has a lot of retracing to do. It's gotten pretty beaten down. It's fallen pretty hard, and you've seen Microsoft and Apple recover so much of what occurred last year. And that's why I still think that there's more longer term upside in Google. So, I mean, I'm buying the shares. I don't really see a trade right here, except for maybe what you're mentioning, positive momentum going up into earnings, into the event. And then usually after earnings in an event like that, you probably trade some downside.
Yeah, we take out that last kind of pivot high going back to Thursday, I guess it was, going into the holiday. But yeah, I mean, all of these very much similar as far as a higher time frame chart, just kind of chopping around in these zones as we head towards some sort of resolution at some point. On that note, I feel like one of the sticking points for Google and Alphabet specifically over the past couple of weeks has been this AI craze. Bard kind of forced, it seemed, a little bit from Google, came out a little bit later. Maybe it wasn't complete when it was, forced into the public's hand. You can actually, in the US now, I saw over the past couple of weeks, get on a wait list to get access to it, to test it out a little bit. So slowly but surely, we're moving in the right direction here. I mean, maybe tie this into the rest of these crazy AI stocks as well, but Alphabet a little bit late to the party.
Well, when you look at that, I mean, on one hand, I can understand why, it was falling in that moment, right? Because we had all of this interest in AI, and we were talking about Microsoft and ChatGPT, and then Google was lagging. I mean, on one hand, you can look at that and you can say, okay, this is good for a trade right now. But I mean, I'm honestly not that concerned in the, longer dated AI race with Microsoft and Google as of this moment, because I mean, Google has a lot of other reasons why you should be long, I mean, Google has YouTube. So when I'm looking at it from the long-term use case, the AI factor really didn't factor into my overall decision to buy those shares. And so if I'm thinking, hey, it's down in a lot of ways because of the talk around AI. I mean, for me, I just see that there's so many other reasons to buy it. And so I guess it's just not a primary concern. I mean, certainly a lot of the AI stocks that are showing a lot of volatility right now are, great to be working on trading, because those are the ones that are being hit on in the media, and because we're seeing a lot of volatility. But I think that long term, I mean, there's just so much possibility, and it's really, really hard to know right now which companies are going to be leading the way. I mean, I'm always going to hang my hat on Microsoft because I love Microsoft, and I think they're a really good, solid company long term. But as far as any of the others, it's going to be really hard to know which ones are going to be the leaders, 10 years down the road.
And it's a great point in the sense that, it's never, typically anyways, it's never the first one to the party that ends up being the winner when all is said and done. So it remains to be seen. If you're going to bet, on anyone, as you said, Microsoft or Google, a good place to put those. Lots of data points to come this week as well. We kind of grazed past it, but we get CPI, we get PPI, we get the Fed minutes as well, all coming on Wednesday. I mean, is there, after everything that has come through already, is there anything out of the ordinary that you might be looking for a trade here?
I mean, not really. Normally when I have such a confluence of events, and a lot of these events are market moving, right? I mean, we could so easily go one direction or another. Normally what I like to do is I like to stay a little bit light on the swing trades. And then as far as the ones that I am actually in, I like to just focus on the relative strength or the relative weakness. I mean, right here, I think the one area that I've been noticing that's still setting up really well on technically based patterns is just going to be the semiconductors. I like the way that the semiconductors have pulled back. If you look at SMH, they pulled back right on the daily chart into key support zones. You have really nice stair step pattern there. And you can see that, NVIDIA, AMD, they're really strong today. And so I like those stocks. I'm going to be focusing on those to the long side. I'm also going to be focusing on Amazon. I usually like Netflix trading higher going into earnings. Tesla was a total bust. And I'm going to keep an eye out for Microsoft and Apple, but absolutely this week, as far as, swing trades with all of that data coming out, I'm very, very light. And so I'll probably wait and I'll get through usually about Wednesday-ish. And then as we get into Thursday and Friday, that's where I'll be looking at setting up more swing trades. So, really just day trading from now until then. And then after we get bank earnings, that is really when I have the ability to put on more size, because we've gotten through a lot of that volatility. And then we'll also have an answer as far as, how the market's going to react to bank earnings, because if bank earnings are terrible and they just throw, complete wet blanket over the market and all of these rallies just fizzle out, I mean, the last thing you want to do is be long all of these tech stocks. So that's, really how I'm looking at this week, how I'm approaching it. And, sometimes you just have to know in the market, like some of these times that are very risky, and I would consider this week to be an incredibly risky week. You just have to preserve your capital, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially, if you are a swing trader.
Ton of resilience in the overall market. As I just checked right now, we're 0.08 away from positive once again. So we just continue to go higher. Thank you, Danielle Shea, VP of Options over at Simpler Trading. Great information as always. We'll touch on some more next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, as always, a pleasure with Danielle there. So a couple of things. I mean, I got stopped out of Square, and I'm going to get to Tesla in a quick second. But I never got a chance. It was a few weeks ago. Maybe it was even over a month ago. We had Danielle on, and I remember there was a lot of positive comments about sort of her approach and being a very good teacher and breaking things down in a nice, concise way that everyone could sort of interpret really well. And I remember saying, oh man, that's something that, having not been an on-air personality, and you talk to traders in a one-on-one basis as a risk manager, you're not really used to doing this. Oh, I always wanted to be better at trying to teach people or get my point across a little more clearly, more concisely. And she actually replied with some advice from her own experience, which is, when you want to break something down, kind of have that point form. Okay, so I'm going to talk about risk on an entry point. Okay, well, make sure you cover the reason to get in. Make sure you cover the risk to reward. Make sure you recover the pitfalls. And I have this mental checklist when I'm talking about something that I want to make sure that I go through and just get all the important points across. And it was pretty cool. And I still try to get better at it. But if you think that we're doing better on explanations, it's because we work on it. It's not easy to trade live for you guys, and I wanted to thank Danielle for at least helping me in terms of giving you guys better explanations, and I hope it is working out. However, while all this was happening, so here's Square, block, that stopped out, good out. I mean, obviously it got back into VWAP, we got some out there, reloaded, stopped out, 10 cents worth of risk. Tesla as well, so a lot happened on Tesla. It got up to that 185, right before Danielle came on. I had just gotten in the short at 90, got out of more than half of it on the way down to 84, then reloaded kind of the same way in front of the high of the day here. So I'm back in with an 83 price, which is, it's okay, but it is pretty strong. It looks like we're going to make another run at the high here. So if it turns around, maybe a little more aggressive, scalping it out there in the 50, in front of that 60, then down out in front of 184 as well. So there's a couple of rinse and repeats, one that didn't work on Square, one that did work at least the first time on Tesla. We'll see what happens now. And as for I'm going to close the betting on this NVIDIA thing pretty soon. It's almost 3 o'clock, but talk about almost a perfect price area. It's just chilling out here at 275. So it's an over-under. Will NVIDIA close above or below 75? It tries to break away to the downside. It gets 50 cents, can't go. Goes up 50 cents, can't go. So it's almost like it's in the perfect spot right now for NVIDIA. And it could go either way here, obviously up that 2% and looking pretty strong. So the betting, get your bets in. I mean, use your viewer points. The more active you are in the chat, the more hours you watch, the more points you get. And then we're going to be thinking about ways to redeem them. Obviously, we do it for fun. But we're not eligible for any prizes we eventually do with these. We're still thinking about the best way to convert this into something a little bit more spicy. So those are my trades. Tupperware will kind of take care of itself because nothing is really happening there. And my goodness, thank you for pointing that out. We have 3,000 watching and checks, likes, 403 likes.
I mean, that's just over 10%. Come on, guys, 10%.
It's because you don't know the wire. That's the problem. I feel like if you actually got the wire references,
yeah,
double the likes right there.
Yeah, probably.
And then you missed the Marcellus Wallace one.
I mean, can we make it a little bit more modern or something?
No.
But I mean, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just hit
Well,
the
would
likes.
you like me to make a Taylor Swift reference? Would that help you out?
I wouldn't know that either.
But you said make it more modern. So
yeah, but it doesn't mean Taylor Swift.
No, okay, well then give me an example of something more modern, Arun.
I don't know, man.
Exactly.
Can't put me on the spot like that. I don't know what's relevant right now. You remember you said something from the chat, the daddy chill thing, and I was like, what does that even mean?
Well, I don't know what it was, man. Someone said daddy chill in the chat. I'm like, is there a meme?
It's like I don't know what that means. So yeah,
I know it's a YouTuber. I'm being facetious.
Is it a YouTuber or is it a meme? Anyways, regardless of whether it makes a difference or not, it really doesn't make a difference. But the futures market has picked up into. You got to close that that betting because
it's
this
not
market
3 o'clock yet.
This market is accelerating into 3 o'clock.
All right, I'm gonna close
futures market now sitting and trying to push against these 31s. Remember, on the future side of things, 35 was the break point to the upside.
Betting is closed.
Betting is closed, by the way. So if you made your bets, good. If you waited until the last possible second, nope. It's not going to work now. But 35 to the upside would open the door for the futures market to actually start looking at levels from Friday when the market was the equity side was closed. We've been into these 40s. Now let's see if we're going to accelerate going into the close here, final hour of trading, and looks like we're going to catch a bid here as we are running to the upside. Good strength here. Last checkpoint we need to get through is that 35 marker. Let's see if it actually holds up. If 35 goes, most likely NVIDIA will continue on up. So everyone who bet to the upside, you might be winning. But again, there's still an hour left. Things can change very, very quickly if they hit a sell pocket and decide to come right back down. And NVIDIA's had a run today, obviously up 2%. Strong move to the upside. That could, could go both ways at this point. But I mean, looking pretty strong right now.
You know what the most degenerate thing you could possibly do? And I'm not suggesting anybody do this.
What's up?
It popped into my mind because I'm like, well, if you happen to have bet the under, which looks really bad right now, the under 275, as we're trending up, you could always just go long for real money. That makes 0 sense to do. I would never suggest anybody do that. But imagine, well, if it gets the under, I get my pride points, but I can always go long above 275. Now, I'm saying that in all jest because NVIDIA could truly be making a bit of a breakout here. And if you think about where the stock has been, it's sort of obvious why I like those shorts this morning. I think you had the chance to maybe reverse off of 271, but there's some room above here at 75. It's not like there's 278, 280. Those are the levels up top here. That's what we're concerned about. There is plenty of room for this to run if it wants to make a go of it here. So if it pops back down into 75, I'm not really saying that. I said that as a joke, hey, go long if you happen to have been short on our little bet thing in the chat. No, it's because higher lows have been put in. You're trying to break away from that 75. I think the next dip into it's probably a reasonable long on NVIDIA down there. I got Tesla off the top here as it's reversing. I'm going to have to start scalping some out there in the 60s because this looks pretty strong. But I like the dip buy on NVIDIA off 75. I think you can give that to the half where it had some support before. And then Bob's your uncle. But as I just said there, I just took a little bit out of Tesla because quite frankly, look, that was a strong test of the high. So I wanted to trim some there. My short was at 8 in the 80s, which quite frankly stinks. So when you're scalping, price matters a little bit more. So I get some out in the 60s, which is not necessarily what I've liked that first out, but I want my entries. If I'm taking this again, it needs to be 90s, 95. You got it. So, it happened. I get that out. I'm like, yeah, it's looking a little bit stronger there. You got to get 90s, 95s, then it immediately starts working even better. So let's go flush to the downside on Tesla. This could mean if we get a pullback, we could see that NVIDIA opportunity. And guess what can't break 162 and ends in Apple? I had nothing for that. Apple, this is probably still, I like this level for sure, and I keep thinking it's going to press higher and give those entries right at the 162 level on Apple, and it's just not happening. So maybe I just need to be getting in here off that 160, 180 and just take whatever we can get. Underneath 162 has always been, since this morning, obviously, it's not always, but that's been the level. And I feel like I need to be getting back into this one to play the pullback there. Lone Sophos, not Snapple. Oh, whatever happened to Snapple? That's still a thing.
Snapple, isn't it Dr. Pepper? Isn't it part of Dr. Pepper?
I used to drink that stuff back in the day.
I think, because it's under Schweppes, and I think Dr. Pepper's, I don't know, I could be wrong. But
I
thought Schweppes was under Dr. Pepper, and Schweppes owned Snapple. I could be wrong.
Schweppes had, what was the, there was one flavor of Schweppes that was like my jam in high school. We'd finish a cross-country meet, and I would have a 2-liter bottle of I think it was grapefruit Schweppes. And A
2-liter bottle?
Whatever.
You know how big those are?
High school metabolism.
Oh my gosh.
High school metabolism. That was my jam. Seriously, that was my thing. But Ford, Momo. Ford broke out, and to me, there's not a setup on the day trade. So Ford was a short setup this morning. If it could have kept rejected 1250, I think I said that and went over to GM and kind of took the GM trade that didn't work. But now that it's broken 1260, come to my daily chart for a second here, guys. Now that it's above 1260 on Ford, you're really just waiting for it to get into 13. That's the next level up. Either at put in the lower high, held the 50 period. The 50 period's pretty much at 1250 on the daily. That's why I was looking at it there. So either it failed then here, and you're shorting off that level. Now that it's broken out, you're waiting for 13. Kind of in the middle. I wouldn't be touching it when it gets to 13. Steve G, grapefruit Schweppes, isn't that Fresca? I don't know. I don't think I've had Fresca, but it was delicious, man. It was one of my things. I'm not a real big pop drinker. Like, I never was into Coke unless it's with like a rum and Coke or something. But whatever it was, I think it was a raspberry Schweppes. Maybe not grapefruit. I want to say it was a raspberry Schweppes. That was that ish, man. Like, just
they probably still like it too.
I feel like that would go really well with like gin for some reason.
You should try it on the show one time. One time when you guys have your beers. One time, just do that.
Yeah, but then I got to go find raspberry Schweppes.
I don't think it's gonna be that hard. It can't be that hard.
I don't know, maybe it's not that hard.
It's like Bob W in the chat. It's like, Arun doesn't know about pop culture, but it's an ace at brand recognition. Thank you. That's for being a trader. Because you give me a name of a company, I'm going to know the ticker because that's how my brain operates. I don't know if you guys are like that, but I see Boeing. I was like, Boeing for whatever reason. I'm like, oh, BA's doing this and that. And I'm just like, oh, yeah. Coke? It's not Coke to me. It's KO. I know right. KO. Like, I refer everything by its ticker. And it's kind of weird at times. And like the tickers that I know, and I'm just like, how do I even know this ticker? But for whatever reason, I've come across this ticker, and I can instantly attach that ticker to the name of the company. I
know this happens to you because I do this all the time. How many times are you messaging friends or whatnot, and that you're talking about like Apple or something, and you'll actually physically type AAPL. Like, I'll message with like my dad or something talking about an Apple product for whatever reason because he's really into it, and I will literally type AAPL. He's like, huh? What are you talking about? It's a ticker. We deal in tickers around here. Like, I'm talking about Tesla. Today, someone asked me about what Tesla was doing, and I put TSLA. And nowadays, people know you're a trader. They understand that.
Yeah.
And always make sure that you have the right symbol. Because I'm telling you, it happens from time to time. There's been people that have traded like TLSA, which is an actual stock. I almost feel like you shouldn't be allowed to have a ticker which is an obvious typo of a large cap symbol. You would think that that's a reasonable precaution that they could put into the markets, but anyways, let's do this one because Tesla, 185 again to 184.20. So rinse and repeat. If it gets up there a third time, a fourth time, technically speaking, I don't know that it's going to be all that good. But as long as it works, someone was asking where the scalp trades today. I think that 185 is it for you. So that dollar range is working. Micron's not giving me any re-entry points. Virgin Galactic, like seriously. So Virgin, it's grinding. I did not cancel my order. I canceled the notion of going 345 short, but I don't think I actually put any orders in there. I'm still waiting at 49 for more shares of Virgin Galactic. I put that order to get more shares at 1136 and saw no reason to cancel it. So if it gets to 330 and it hasn't moved another cent to get me filled, I'll probably have to cancel it at that point. But the rinse and repeat to me has been on Tesla. I see people talking about Meta a lot. Big, strong move on Meta here. You know, I don't remember why I didn't like this morning. I remember why. I didn't like it this morning because it made this bottom break, and I just didn't see anywhere to get into the short trade. So once it started reversing, it never really kind of tested 10 even, and yeah, this is pretty good right about here, 216. I think that's the only trade you want to make. You're shorting off of Friday's close. Good look. If you got it, great. But I mean, I went to Tesla 85. If you're in this, you've already got $1. I don't know that I would chase that move $1. So congratulations if you're in that meta. I think it's a decent one. I don't know that I would want to enter it here at 215. I'd want to be playing it on a bounce, kind of how I'm playing Tesla.
All right, there was actually a comment in there. It was geared towards you. It might be tagged for you. It was like, I just wanted to kind of answer that. It was, would you consider swinging cold, the nat gas play, right?
To me,
it was.
I don't trade commodities.
But like, regardless, the one thing I think everyone should understand about nat gas is because of the way it moves, right? Especially at these March, April time periods, it gets very, very volatile. Although it may seem like a great move, you're going to be in one position. Let's just say going back to March 31st here, it was closed at 72. It comes back and opens the following day. Well, traded all the way up at 80s in the pre, and then opened somewhere around the 78 marker. So you've got to expect these gaps, and you're seeing these gaps, and it's going to kind of be the same thing for coal, boil, UNG. Nat gas has the tendency to do this, and that's currently the volatility. Volatility is great, but if you're swinging it, just be aware that you are going to be dealing with these kind of overnight gaps and whatnot going into it, right? Think about what happened on Thursday. Thursday, we were up on cold. We were up near about 84 bucks, and in the pre, it fell apart and opened the day at 72. Can you handle that in your account if you are going to swing it? Because that will happen, and that's part of the game here in nat gas, especially with these ETFs, the ultra shorts and the longs as well. And then if you really want to be safe, you can go with UNG, but I mean, nobody wants a 6% return on UNG when you can get cold or boil to get the leverage on that, right? So just be aware that that's what you're dealing with if you decide to go in that direction. In terms of like swinging it, you don't trade it. I don't swing that either. And then nat gas, I'm not touching this on a longer term perspective on the actual futures contract itself at this time period. Intraday wise, sure. But in terms of overnight positions on nat gas, it's a much different game right now. It may calm down later in a couple months or so, but for now, I think it's a no-go in terms of overnight activity or just even carrying it overnight. The amount of risk you're taking on is unnecessary because what you think is a pattern breakout does not necessarily mean it's a pattern breakout because there's other factors in play as well, specifically the weather.
This is why I don't trade, because I remember it was like a few months ago, Sharif and I were talking about natural gas, and it was in the context of like I was kind of swinging Tellurian back in the day. It doesn't really matter, but Tell's kind of interesting name. I've been in and out of it a couple of times, but I remember I was looking at natural gas, the crazy trend, and I remember thinking and looking at it, oh, look at this trend reversal on that gas, and it's set up like this is a bounce for sure, but like what it takes to break a trend there, it'll psych you out so many times, and then all of a sudden, what you think is just an A+ setup is literally like a D-, and it's just a totally different beast. Steve G calling it the Widowmaker. I've never heard that reference before, but I can see why. Commodities are a different beast, man. Stay in your lane. There's nothing wrong with that. If you trade equities, trade equity. But if your thing is trading commodities, there's all kinds of opportunities. Just understand how well that sucker trends. So I want to respect that. I might not get that reload I was talking about in Tesla the third time. Looks like it's starting to break down a little bit here. Virgin Galactic not really breaking down. I know there's still a chance to maybe pick up some Apple at some of these highs. I got these wicks up here, so apologies to that. But if I can get 161.70s, somewhere in the 70s on Apple, I might try to pick up that short. Market's starting to come in here, but 80 cents in the money on Tesla. Don't know if we can get it a third time. We were talking about AMD, but I don't know if that got high enough. NVIDIA, I mean, it doesn't really want to pull back that much. It's back beneath 76, but that 75 is nowhere to be seen just yet on NVIDIA. Meta, I mean, yeah, maybe that was the one. But, you know, Tesla, it's giving you a dollar move. That's the same as the Tesla gave you off 185. And if anything, let's see some more confirmation of it before I re-enter or before I get into something else. Oh, and just because I happen to be in it, I mean, still not a heck of a lot happening on AMC. Okay, I might not want these bids. If it gets back down into VWAP in 515, let me zoom out a little bit, gets back down in there, I might cancel that bid. It cannot seem to get to the high of the day, let alone break it. You know what, I'm just going to offer the high of the day. I'm just going to offer in front of the high of the day. If it goes another 10 cents up, we'll just get out of AMC. Up 7% and completely running out of steam here. If it doesn't move, you don't have to trade it. And what else is moving in here? There's got to be some small capper that's interesting. I was checking back in on that GFAI a couple of minutes ago just to see if that had caught a bid, but not really. Like GFAI played the break when it took out the pre-market high, tried to hold on for the home run, like got 1775, it got to 1850, and then stopped out. Should have just reversed on this bad boy. Not doing much except holding 15 even. So this might be in play tomorrow off 15, but no volume, nothing. Just looking for something that's making a move. Riot maybe. When you're trading Riot, the only issue there is when we're trading these bigger cap tech names, like I'll be watching the NQ and the futures and have some of the other names up there, and I find if you're going to trade a Riot, then you just need to be tracking Bitcoin a little bit more than I would be on a minute-to-minute basis or have that chart up. So that's the trouble. It's not that I've traded Mara before when I was really focused and I had a couple of Bitcoin charts up and it worked really well. But if anything, you just want to stay in a pocket. If you're trading this, it's at a monster level right now. You want to have a close eye on what's going on in spot prices at all times, I think, in that moment, just to make sure. Like if let's say you're taking a breakout here, big breakout on the daily potentially happening there on the right, well, I want to be glued to make sure a reversal isn't happening and you're not at a key resistance level or some kind of technical reversal isn't happening over there in Bitcoin that's going to psych me out, because that would scream to me, okay, that chart, short in the 40s, if it makes a fresh high, break out into the long, because above 1060 is that level on the daily. Well, none of that crap matters if all of a sudden you have a big monster move or a more important indicator going on in Bitcoin. And that's why we tend to stay away from it, because you have to be focusing on that every single moment. If you are trading it, yes, it is a nice short on Meta. Maybe we should have sniffed that one out. I just like Tesla better. I have no idea why I didn't focus on Meta this morning. It was all about Apple, it was all about Tesla, it was all about Nvidia and AMD, and Meta kind of went to the wayside there, and it was just as good a short as any, and now off 216, I think it's good again.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of done here on the day. The way it's been moving up, there's been a few opportunities. HD paid out well, EBIX paid out well, futures not so much. We were short, then we were long, and then we kind of missed out the rest of this move to the upside, but that's kind of it. I mean, I'm okay with this. We do have a lot of activity later in the week, right? Well, this is kind of the week where CPI data, we've got Fed minutes, or FOMC minutes, so we got a lot of activity coming out in the next few days, and I think that's going to provide the volatility that this market does. So I'm just kind of going through the chat, see what you guys are talking about. And Meta, obviously, for today, it obviously fell down, but at the same time, I think this is kind of range bound. The way I see it is kind of range bound, but north of 217, I like that. Hopefully we make that break tomorrow, but that would be a nice little trade, breaking the top end of the range. We've been kind of struggling north of 216 for a while, or for a few days, and then come Thursday, we actually took a run north of 216 and then failed overnight. And now we're coming back into that 215 area. Let's see if this holds up, futures market holds up, and they decide to take a run for 217, I think the upsides could potentially be there. Futures market still respecting that 35. Remember, 35 was kind of the break point that we needed to kind of get going, to extend this trade and going into, I guess, overnight. But for now, we are still resisting that urge to break it. 4130 to 4135 still holding up well, so that zone is still there. We're just going to keep an eye on this one. Are shorts in play given the time of day? Nah, not really. I think you don't have enough time to make something work, because it's not just a matter of 40, just a shade underneath 45 minutes, but also at 350 you have imbalances coming out. So you don't even have 45 minutes. You have about 33 minutes or so to make it work. So
scalp trades are on.
What's that?
So it's like scalp trading here.
You can scalp trade it.
That's about it.
That's exactly it.
Which the futures, I mean,
you can scalp. I know a lot of people. There are people that love to scalp on the futures, and they do make money. It's a skill that you need to be constantly on and churning through volume to make it happen. And at that point, you're fighting the algos that are doing the exact same thing. So I try not to enter that arena, because you are not going to win against the algos.
Isn't that what that guy did? Remember the guy they scapegoated in England for the flash crash?
Oh, okay.
That's what he was.
Is that what he was doing?
He was a scalper, but he was spoofing to scalp futures.
You're spoofing to scalp the futures?
So, I mean, so the story goes, and again, I forget the guy's
I never
name.
read into that, but I remember.
And I forget the guy's name. So essentially, I think what he was doing, and again, if I have this dead wrong, then whatever, don't add me. It's just I remember reading something about it. But the guy was spoofing large order size in the futures at specific times of the day when it could move the market by placing large orders to try to manipulate the stock, and then taking relatively small moves in the futures. Now, the reason they pinned the flash crash on him is like his order flow caused, was helping to cause liquidity imbalances. Like, he'd put some orders in, a bunch of people would be canceling, he'd remove his liquidity and there'd be nothing there, that kind of nonsense. I think he got scapegoated, because I don't think any individual pusher could have anything to do with
But
that kind
on
of
the
triggering.
futures, the leverage you need to even get the influence. Like, you can't do it with a few under contracts. You're going to need to do it with like 1,000 to 2,000 to push.
He had some serious BP. He was putting in huge fake trades. Again, I could have some of the story wrong, but again, I'm pretty sure what his actual trading was, notwithstanding the flash crash, his actual trading was not taking large moves. I wanted to get to Palantir for Navinder Sorrow. That's the guy's name. Thank you, new investor. I remember those. And again, spoofing is you put the orders out into the market with no intention of them being filled in order to influence the price action. So that's essentially what he was accused of doing, and I'm pretty sure that's what they got him on. I think he went to jail. So you put the orders out there, your intention is to cancel them before they can fill, and you're just trying to move the price. Now, sometimes they get run over, which to each their own. Sometimes we'll be showing you guys level 2. I'm like, look at this guy, and they take a fill. Another times we'll like, look at this person on level 2. Oh, they don't want it. They're just going to pull. And one of the big tricks they can pull, I'm just going to use whatever level 2 I have up here. So Palantir, a few things. Palantir on the daily, that's juicy. 865. If that breaks, hold the moving averages. Like that breakout if it happens on Palantir. Strong day today. But what'll happen is, let's say, look at all the liquidity at like 39, right? Like tens of thousands of shares on Palantir. And you get all of this. So imagine someone pops a couple of 100,000 shares, like 10x the bid at at 37 to try to move the price up. Well, what an algo can do, if they've got that order there, why they can never actually have that bluff called, is they can have smaller bids at 38, 39, and 40, and then the second those fill, like say one in front of 38 fills, they can automatically cancel the 37. And because they're co-located, that cancel is going to work for sure, because by the time they get the notification for 38, millisecond goes by, boom, they're canceled that 37 order. Now, most traders can't actually do that. If they put that 37 in, even if they have 38, 39 and set an auto cancel on that order, they're not going to get that fast a message, my 38, 39 filled, I'm canceling my 37. You just get run the heck over. So most traders you can't do that kind of spoofing unless you're an algo, because someone will fill you and then you're just screwed. Now, the algos can do it because of their advantages. That's why, and again, I'm not specifically accusing anybody of that, but when you see large orders on the order book, check out what happens when it gets there. Does it get to that price? Are they taking the fill? If they're taking the fill, then okay, you got yourself a whale, and you might want to trade off of that. But if you can't confirm that, like trust me, trading off of size, it's not what it used to be. When I started trading, you would just see ridiculous size and be like, oh my goodness, Goldman Sachs has 1 million shares on the bid. This is going to work. The Facebook IPO, Morgan Stanley's on the bid for 15 million. You can't lose. And I'm not even making that up. They defended the IPO price for 15 million shares. They filled it. They reloaded it. You couldn't lose. The second you saw it reload, everyone and their mother punched long at the cent above, and it was free money for the rest of the afternoon. You can't do that anymore. That's pretty much it. You will never see that happen again, because it's just a completely different ballgame. But yeah, just be careful when trading off of size because of that. Back to Palantir, I do like this opportunity for a breakout, just setting up things that could happen the rest of the week. 860 looks pretty good. Just remember, it failed the living you-know-what out of $9 the other day. So yes, it could reclaim this and break out. Now, the reason why I still think the breakout can still be here is if you look at, this is all pre-market action. So it was pre-market above, it was then pre-market when it flushed. It never opened in the open market, tested breaking out above that 860 level. So I still think that can be valid for Palantir. That dip still held a lower high. Now you're back above the 50 and the 200, so that one still sets up. And finally, there we go, not a reload in Apple. I shouldn't call this a reload, because a reload would have been getting short 161.50. Now short off the 162 here, 161.75. Highly creative price for myself there. If it's above 62, I'm out. If it's beneath, I want to work that short, and it's just a scalp trade. And I did say I might not reload Tesla this time. I might give it one shot, but if it does get up here, I do want only 184.90s. That's the short I want. With Apple, I can start in at 75 because it's been a little bit weaker at this level. With Tesla, how many times is it going to give you this? And it's a long off 184 and a short off 185, but it's been a long pretty much since 936. So if you're going to get, I'm not going to get greedy about shorting the 85 level, whereas I suppose if you're with the trend, you can be a bit more greedy going to that 184 well over and over and over again. So I kind of flipped over. I now have Apple that I'll scalp off that 162 level, whereas Tesla, I'm just going to hold on to what I have. It might set up again for a short, but it's now 323. We are running out of time, which means you've got to be picky with your entries and picky with your trades. I just like Apple, which has been lagging a little bit more as opposed to Tesla.
All right. Futures market struggling with the 30s, so not that big of a deal at the moment. Now, we're not getting any resolution to this just yet. HT coming back in. We'll deal with HT tomorrow as well, because until it breaks 88, 288, potential still long still available, as long as it doesn't do that. Somebody in the chat put in TRK. That's what I'm looking at right now, right? Not the stock, but I'm looking at the chat to see what you guys are talking about, because I have nothing else to do right now because I'm out of everything. TRK, it's a penny stock, not exactly my cup of tea, but at the same time, I can look at a chart, and what does the daily chart show you? it is kind of starting to respect that 20 to 25 area. It's a penny name, so the expectations can't be that big just yet. But it did a few days ago, or a month ago, early March, there was a situation where we were very close to $1, right? And then we kind of fell apart here, making a little bounce. So I would keep an eye on these 35 to 40s, and if we can get above there, there's a possibility that the turn is happening because that 20 to 25 is starting to put in a base. So I would just keep an eye on this one. Nothing to do just yet. It's up 25% on the day, but 25% on a 25-cent name, you know, is it that big of a deal? I would just wait a little bit. But for now, it is looking like it's got some strength. Just be aware it's in the face of this big move to the downside. So you are looking at a long, potentially into resistance and against a sell-off. So take it for what it is. It's just turning. It's a matter of keeping an eye on these kinds of names when they are starting to do something like this, because you could jump into something before they fully accelerate, but at the same time doesn't mean just because it's had a good day or really big day today that this is the turning point, right? So I would just keep an eye on it and see what the daily is starting to show you, because I don't know how you can trade these intraday, because these are extremely tight. You do these a lot, right? These low price names. Can you actually work these intraday when they're like 25 cents?
So answer is yes. It's just that, so when I started trading, for those that don't know this, I did start out at least my real profitability. And I mean, like, I made money when I was initially, like in my second or third month of the trading. I did make money momentum trading, but it wasn't until I actually flipped and just started trading small caps and penny stocks that I made really consistent profits and was able to build my bankroll. Like it was from that. So you can trade these. However, when I was trading sub-dollar and focused on it, like that was, on a given week, I might trade 4 or 5 names, and then every single day it was those names. So if you're trading off a TRK, it's Troika, I believe, right? TRKA. If you're trading off of this and you're seeing, you see that support down there, like in the high teens, let's just say, and resistance of like 27, like you're all over it on a daily basis. Like when it breaks 20 even, I'm just, I'm loading the longs and you're building into position and you're holding that sucker all day. You're working in and out of it. So you're scalping every couple of cents and then adding on dips. And like, that's what you're doing. And then if it gets up to a resistance level, it's kind of the same thing. You're wary of the breaks, but you don't sit there trading 5 or 6 names at one time. Like there is a big focus that you would have on those penny stocks, because the whole game is on those, like you're trading more shares to get smaller moves. The percentage gains are kind of the same thing, but if you look at the way that they trade, like you'll have these pockets of liquidity in things like this. Let me just go back. This is still on Palantir. There's these pockets of liquidity which to the extent aren't the exact same because they don't pay rebates. It's a really long and hilarious story as to why they don't pay rebates for when you add liquidity on sub-dollar stocks. It has to do with I think it was Ameritrade. Ameritrade lost a lot of money on an absolutely genius scam back in the early 2000s, and that's why they don't pay rebates on some penny stocks. I'll tell that story when we have more time because I don't want to get into it right now. But yeah, so since you don't add liquidity and get paid to do it, so you don't see like massive order flow. Like you'll see tons of shares going off in the dark, but like on a 29-cent stock, like where are your 50,000 orders? Where are people taking 100,000? They're just not showing it on level 2 unless it's doing like Mullen things where it's at a key price. So you really have to pick your spots to work in and out of your large shares on the ones that don't just show you all those levels. So yeah, you got to be really focused on them. Yes, you can make money doing so. Let's imagine you like the 25 long on this, break down, close above 25, and you're working longs in this range. Well, you're long in here and here and here. You're building into it as it comes back down. You're scalping out, and you're net long the whole way. It's just a matter of how close it is to your resistance level, your support level, as to the position size you have. But when I was doing it, you were constantly in position. Like from the open to close on a stock like this, I wouldn't be flat at any point. And it was just a matter of if it's close to 25, I'd be all in. And if it was at 26, 27, I'd have like 20, 30% on, but I'm just working it the entire way. It's a very, very different game, at least for a prop trader when you're trading these penny stocks. It was a lot of fun, though, I can tell you that much. And then the algo started to take control of it, and it's not really the same that it used to be. Where's my first? So I got the first entry on Apple. I have been unable to get fills down here 1-to-1 at 161.5. Once I get that, we'll be able to celebrate it. Tesla, I did not reload, but these shorts, they feel like they're working right now. So I want to get in and out if I can multiple times off this 62 area there on on Apple. Did not reload Tesla. Meta was the one that, yeah, it might have just been an entry off of 15. I know 16 is the better out, but there might be something to it. And shout out to everyone in the chat that keeps yelling about Meta might be the better short. You might be right about that, but that 215 is pretty good. Momo, it's an interesting story, but it's 3:30 right now. We got the imbalances coming up. You know how I can ramble. It's a really cool story, and partly because I don't want to take any credit about it, but the trader myself, the trader that I sat next to, I remember we actually had a part in reporting it because the scam started happening, whoever was doing it, literally on a stock that we would do like 10% of the volume on that month. And all of a sudden, this penny stock, which might do at best like 1 million shares or 2 million shares a day, of which we were doing pretty heavy, decent volume on it, all of a sudden literally led the NASDAQ in volume for 5 days in a row. And we're like, this is jacked up. This is what we think is happening on it. But I'll tell you guys that story at another time there. It's a really, really cool one. But it's kind of funny how rule changes happen when people scam the system and break it, and that's one of the reasons they don't pay a rebate, because someone had a genius scam. Let's go over to the crypto update at the desk with Brennan.
Hey guys, yeah, still seeing a little bit of follow through here for Bitcoin as we head into the final 30 minutes of the equity session. Anyways, this started during the midday if you're with Sharif and Obi. Nice move to the upside here for BTC now. Almost 4.5% on the day, testing that high going back to middle of last week if you are, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, on a daily chart. But a nice look here, back above 29,000, trying to break to the upside right now for BTC. Here is ETH, Ethereum. Not really participating. We did get that early move going back to last week as well, back to 1950, but not as big of a push for Ethereum right now. 3.25 on the 12-hour, 1889 right now for Ethereum, but mostly positive, as we said this morning, for cryptos to start. But Bitcoin with a late push here, guys.
Is that the one with
No,
Millennium?
it's a little different. I was just explaining it. So I was giving the Coles notes to Arun there of what it was, because like it's weird. Like not even everybody. Like I've told that story. I've told the story on the floor, and not everyone's even heard of it because it happened so long ago. So oh my goodness, I keep missing the bid barely on Apple here. Now you're catching another bounce here. Momo asking about Ford. It moved higher than you expected. I still think 13's on Ford. Quite frankly, it's grinding higher, man. This did me on GM today. Like I had my short set up on GM, kind of, okay, it pops into the 35 range. I had a 35 average price. I wasn't even, like it comes back down to underneath 35. I'm like, nah, it has to break down and give me 34.50. Like that's not a scalp trade. Like I set this up and I'm not even thinking about a scalp trade. I'm like trend short into 33 on the higher time frame, get my entry point off to 15 here, give it to the high, but I only want this if it's flushing back into 34. It just never broke. Way too strong on GM. 3% to the upside. I wouldn't fight Ford on a day like today either. You know, it needs to get to 13. It just, once it broke out here, I just find you get yourself in so much trouble trading in that middle. Once it's past that 50 area, either it fails here, you win, you lose, you move on. The next trade is literally 50 cents higher, which on Ford, that's just too much to carry it because now you're up like 3% there. Like you need it to go that 50 pennies is a pretty decent move on Ford. It's just a matter of you still have that resistance there, and you're right. Like it's not dead wrong on the swing trade. It's just make sure you have the risk to reward. Like a day trade, swing trade, two very different things there. The early look is 72 million to sell. So that doesn't sway one way or the other. Changes absolutely no biases as far as what I would do going into the close here. I might take a shot. I think Tesla probably is safe to reload off 185. I didn't do so. I was kind of waiting for it to break 84s and we get 83s. I'll just go back to the well. If we're going to have an inside day and the imbalances are small, we're not breaking the highs, then you still want to be shorting off the top or long off the bottom. I don't care. Like whatever floats your boat. 184 long since we came on. It's been a good short twice. The exact same longs worked for you twice as well. So it doesn't really you know, you could be doing both ends of this trade in terms of Tesla. It's just giving it to you. And NVIDIA is not moving. I have my 3-minute up. NVIDIA's got a 50-cent range.
That's the most interesting thing is the bets that everyone placed on NVIDIA because of where it's sitting at. Like the metrics on that is going to be hilarious because now NVIDIA is starting to make a move. Like is everyone going to be like winning? Like I know a lot of you guys place bets to the buy side, but NVIDIA is moving south of 50 now into 40s. Is it going to be above 75? Is it not? That's the most interesting thing to happen in the next half an hour or next 25 minutes because you know what? This market's got no juice at all. Maybe Brendan's got something for us.
I just saw UPS here, guys, pop back up on pretty heavy volume downside. I was mentioning that story when we came on at 2 o'clock. USPS raising prices, which had a little bit of pressure anyways at that point for both FedEx and this one. But you can see huge volume spike here, downside for UPS.
Metrics?
Oh,
no, the actual bets on the day, because you can see them, right?
So I have to go my bets, I think. We're just talking about the bet. I'll see what it is. I don't know how much people are betting either way, but it gives you your odds, then you know how much people are going.
No, in the console where you created the bet.
Oh, it's up here.
Yeah, you can see what the bets are and what the pot is. Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah.
So right now, let me refresh it because that doesn't seem right. It looks like
Brendan, what's up?
Most of the bets are above. 100% people betting
they're
above.
back on Brendan.
Oh, sorry.
Exciting.
It is worth mentioning, like that was a pretty large volume spike on UPS. Like this is what happened. Come back here. Like UPS gave up 190s and then bounced into VWAP and then came right back. Like it was a huge spike to the downside, about $1. But when you immediately recover a move like this, on news, the volume does that and it immediately recovers. I always tend to say like your only trade is off where the news happened at 90. So your only real trade, unless you go long off the bottom, it's short off 190 or don't trade it at all. So you kind of pick your spots. That does feel like it might be tradable in there. But if I'm not getting off 190, I'm not taking it all. I'm about to get more Apple, by the way, because I never got any shares in front of that 180 level. Sorry, that 160, 180. I have 75s. I want some shares in the 85 to 90 range, tighter to that 162. But that's the kind of story there. If you're not getting the 190, I don't know how far I would chase that move into the downside. But the shorts are printing. They are working, but we're not getting huge follow through. And with the imbalances being absolutely nothing, putting on a new trade into 350, it better be at an absolutely perfect price. Yeah, and that's why it's got to be like I cannot even get 50s on Apple here. Like the actual scalp trade on Apple has really been to take 10 to 15 cents. And I'm looking for more than that. And you can't get it because I'm looking for more and it's not giving it to you. I'm just going to get out of AMC. Okay, I'm going to cancel my bids on AMC. Like, this is completely useless. If AMC breaks 520, there's no point being in it. I thought we may climb to the high of the day there, but pretty much nothing. I got this on the first dip to VWAP at almost at noon and never got a reload off VWAP on my 3-minute, never got a push to the high of the day. If it's under 520, I'm just going to get out. And it might be tomorrow that we have to wait out for this. You have to be able to not care. Like, if the breakout or the move that you want doesn't quite happen, but it's still available to you tomorrow, then just wait for tomorrow. Like AMC has been bouncing since the gap down, and the conversion going through, they got crushed. It made the bid off 360. It looks to try to break out off 550. The longs can be in, and a squeeze trade can be on here. It just obviously isn't going to happen today at this particular point. So we can always come back to this tomorrow and be looking for longs above 5 into the 550 break. So I thought today was going to be it because of the strong move. Clearly that's not there yet. It's still available tomorrow. If we're above 475 in that 5 range, that trade can still be there for us. It's just a matter of, this ain't happening. We're not going to get it. We'll stop out under 520, just above break even, or whatever. We'll make a couple of cents on that trade even if it does go down. But yeah, this can be there for you tomorrow if you're one of those apes looking for the moonshot. You just got to know when it's not happening and then be patient and go for the move. Join the move as it's there. It was very strong one off 75, but the continuation will have to wait for another day.
All right, I'm going through the calendar, or the economic calendar for I guess, for the next couple days here. In terms of the economic side, I was like, okay, what could possibly give us a catalyst? There's nothing tomorrow. Not a whole lot here. I mean, 3-year note auction, I 3-year, not that big of a deal. But it's fairly small. And then I look at Wednesday, I'm like, why is everything on one day? Are we going to have another quiet day and then have everything happen on Wednesday? We've got the CPI at 8:30 in the morning. Then we've got crude oil numbers, potentially, could move the market. Then you have the 10-year note auction at 1 o'clock, something to pay attention to. And then you have the Fed minutes at 2 o'clock. So like Tuesday is just, or Wednesday is just going to be one of those days where it's like, oh, this is coming up. We got to keep an eye on this. And then a couple hours later, you got to look at this, something else coming out. So there's a lot on Wednesday that I think you're going to have some fireworks here as we go into the middle of the week here, coming out of a shortened week, which was last week. The market has had a chance to digest I guess the jobless number, or the jobless, not jobless claims, but the non-farm payrolls number. And where are we? We're pretty much where we were when we kind of closed out on Friday or on Thursday. We were roughly in these 30s. We did all of this. And now where are we? Pretty much where we were on Thursday's close. So I guess we have done absolutely nothing. And the number right here at the top, actually forget that number. This is what my board looks like in terms of index activity. Let me get that up for you guys. Right there. S&P down 0.03%. NASDAQ down 0.18. And then you have CLF, which is crude, and then you have GDX for, I just keep an eye on GDX for gold, even though that is the miners. But fairly quiet. Could be an exciting week in the next couple days. Tomorrow, hopefully something better than today, because with more options on the table. Futures market did give us something down below earlier in the day. But since then, since that rally that happened around 12:30-ish, where it was a quick move up, it's been fairly quiet, right? It's been mostly aggressive movement pre-market around 8 o'clock to 8:30. Then it kind of took its time. Then aggressive movement 12:30 to 1. And then now it's taking its time as it kind of drifts continuously to the upside. So for now, it seems like this is kind of just going to be a day where the market's going to take it easy. Tomorrow, hopefully, we get some overnight movement to give us some more activity. And then Wednesday is the big day with everything coming on the board at the same, well, not at the same time, but throughout the day. It's just crazy that they're going to land everything on one day at this point.
That's why you could see an inside day tomorrow. So you want to have your level set out, only trade key stocks at key levels and nothing else. I can finally do this one. It's like, I actually just had this conversation with our floor manager that if you put one trade on today, the one trade just needed to be short Tupperware, quite frankly, and like risk to reward or there wasn't a setup that was better than this one. And if you didn't have the locates, fair enough. It was pretty cheap for us to short 1/8 of 1 cent were our locates at Day Trade the World, but possible delisting coming, and that was a flush. It topped at 150. Sometimes it's really easy. 155 in the pre-market, right at the open, 155 again. It then popped at 10 o'clock into 55, failed at 52, short. It's hilarious, right? Like short right in front of that top, and it just double tapped a low at 120. You're not going to get too many opportunities to make a trade like that, except that it happened pretty much every day on Bed Bath & Beyond for like 2 weeks. And if Tupperware does, I'm going to do the same thing. If I come in tomorrow and it's at the same price, I'm offering 150, and I'm just going to have that order out there locked and loaded to go. So as that worked, and as Tesla worked, here comes Apple. So remember I said you couldn't even get fills at 161.50 on Apple? Well, that should have been a sign. Well, it just gave me finally the average price at 80. It was able to get the fills above 161.80. I'm going to stop this out at 162. 350 could easily have me stopped out. If it's any kind of a buy and balance on Apple, it's going to take 162 on it. So whether I get stopped out at the even or whether I get stopped out in 7 minutes because he has some look down action, now strong move in Apple. It was a great short off this price in the morning, but it's been a battle this afternoon. Lo and behold, it would be Tesla, which somehow felt like it was going to maybe like this was going to be the one I shouldn't have reloaded, and I went to Apple, but Tesla has just been grinding off that 84, and you can't even get 85. Now, I don't want this fill in front of 85s right into the imbalance, so I'll just hold on to the last of my Tesla. My stop is at the high of the day. If it breaks the bottom, I can probably hold on to it till the close. Apple, for now, is flat. It's not like it's against me or anything that much. I mean, it was 5 to 10 cents against at that point. But we're running out of time for it to make a big move, so it's now just a pure scalp trade. It goes 10, 15 cents in the money, got to take it out because it's 344.
Yeah, as we get closer to the imbalances, as Neil said earlier, early look says 73 million to the sell side. That's what we're looking at right now. That number may have changed in the last little bit, but for now, fairly small. Where does it really make a difference? When it's north of $1 billion or somewhere close to that. And then you know that there's a lot of people that want to get in one direction, and at that point, possibly there's going to be a number that comes out that moves the market, not necessarily in the same direction that the early look is, because the early look is exactly that. It's somewhat of a static number because the updates are posted on Twitter and from Financial Juice, I believe.
It is.
From Financial Juice, posted on Twitter. A lot happens between numbers getting posted and as it gets right to the imbalance itself. They could change very quickly just before the release is there.
Get down.
And you may not get that update on Twitter. So you're like, oh, I thought it was long. It's not. As I say that, like I said, the race that I'm really paying attention to is NVIDIA. Are we going to break 275? We were just at 276, or not too far from 276. What do? Break down to 275.30. I'm just worried about your bets, guys. Everybody that made those bets. That's the most exciting thing happening right now, as we are about 5 minutes left from the imbalances. Do I expect these imbalances to do anything? No. I will have them up. This is from this morning here. We'll get that update once it hits 350. But for now, I'll just keep this up here and see if we can't. Apparently, Mullen was the largest imbalance this morning at 652.
It does that. And like,
really?
Mullen is a penny stock because there's a lot of activity on Mullen, so it tends to have imbalances open and close, and it does a ton of volume. That's why you just get a lot of orders triggering on Mullen. It almost never actually moves the stock unless it was like 10, 20 million shares. I wouldn't care too much about it, to be honest with you. But every now and then it is pretty interesting. It's not that much of a fall, but hey, Apple got up, it tested that 90 area, pulled back. I'm going to have to start scalping it with 4 minutes to go. You give really no choice here, but I got that refill. Average price now 82, so we did get some shares above there, closer to 90, in addition to our 75s. But once it was beneath that 75, I'm going to start getting this one out. So, Apple, not quite as good as Tesla for the scalp trade, but certainly in there. And yes, Naresh, we didn't really go over the earnings board because, quite frankly, there isn't anything except Tilray. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Tilray, is CarMax tonight, or is that one tomorrow morning? Let's double check that. I'm pretty sure it might be this week. But Tilray up 5%. They're reporting tonight, I want to say. And if I'm wrong about that, apologies. But I seem to remember reading that one on the train. Maybe these names can go to the upside. Maybe you get a bit of a squeeze play or a breakout play. However, I almost prefer when you can just look at a level like a 350 here, and just for 340, 350, and just let it get to that price and then fade it. Because the chances are, if it's breaking out, you're not going to get the breakout of the 50-period moving average on the earnings play. It'll already have been gone. So the retracement's usually the more enticing play, because that's what's left for you a lot of times with these names. Brendo?
I just saw this on Tilray, guys, here in Toronto, actually. BNN reporting this. Tilray going to strike a $250 million deal to buy Hexo, apparently. So that just popped up.
Oh, you're saying there's consolidation.
That's why you guys were talking about it. See, thank you guys for bringing that news to us. Because I just figured you were talking about Tilray because they report. And then them making the purchase of a Hexo, that's a Toronto name. It's dual. Actually, no, Hexo's dual listed. My gut instinct is when I know a stock is a Canadian stock, or I usually look at it in the Canadian market, my gut is to just pull it up on the Canadian market. But it is, I'm like 90% sure it's dual listed. But yeah, big, strong mover. That's something going to the upside. However, I would never chase deal news late in the day. It's a bit of a rule. Like anytime there's a rumor of something being bought or any deal closing or not closing, after what happened it was Spirit Airlines. I remember trading that one in the afternoon on some deal news, and then they halted the stock, and I was caught. As a day trader, you're caught overnight, and I was caught in Spirit Airlines overnight because I was trading it in the close show. Not a good look, especially when if an update happens, a response happens, you could see halts, especially when you have these kind of deal moves happen. I wouldn't necessarily be fighting a short in this or trying the long. Congratulations if you got it early, but it's already pulled back 20%. I think it could have a floor on that one tomorrow. It's happened from time to time where you can start working longs on these, but that's more of a trade for tomorrow morning, and then we'll see what happens on Tilray's front with those earnings. Come on, Apple. I can't get more than one fill down there. Sheesh. Seriously, that's insane. Like, it'll come back in. gives you 10, 15 cents, and that's it. But it's 3.49 and bounces in less than 1 minute. So this gets really binary in the case of Apple. Either it breaks 62 or I get a flush down into the low 161s. And the same thing with Tesla. Like it goes back down to 184 or we're breaking out the high of the day. So it's pretty binary. NVIDIA still in the same 50-cent range, which is absolutely hilarious that it does not want to move after the crazy move that all those chip names did. Pretty crazy there. 20 seconds to imbalances. I'll get them up for you guys. I guess we'll both have them in there. I don't know if you're looking at anything in the futures. My guess is not.
Nah.
We can't really expect much here.
No.
Like it would have to flip to a huge buy at this point and start breaking out the tops for you to take a trade in the last 10 minutes, I would assume. But here they come. We're going to give them to you live like we always do in 2 and 1. Kind of wanted to be a short because of Apple and Tesla here.
CIG.
Ford, 1.5 million to sell. More the big cap names. JP Morgan's 900,000 to buy, but I mean, like I don't even see any of the NASDAQ names. Apple, 670,000 to buy. Not huge, but that might be enough to get it to the upside. I don't even see Tesla. I might trim some Apple here anyways, flat, just because I just took some Apple shares out there. You might see my price adjust a little bit because, yeah, Google's a buy, 500,000 to buy. Overall, it's a 950 million buy imbalance, so almost 1 billion to buy. That was me just getting some flat on Apple on that number, but it's not like we're screaming to the upside or anything. So a bit of a nothing burger on the imbalances. Might be an opportunity for us to get out. Vincent, is Micron weak? My attitude on Micron is if it's beneath 64, then you like to short. Can you call a stock weak that's up 8% on the day? I don't know if you can, and it's been holding higher lows too, but the short to me was off the lower high early. That's why it was a trade of the day, and then it's off 64. Even if you're wondering why I say that, look no further than the daily chart. I mean, it's not rocket science, man. Look what happens every time the stock gets to $64. It got there on earnings and flushed. It tried to get there today and then gave a nice little pullback on a day that it had positive news catalysts. It still flushed to the downside when it couldn't break that level. So, I mean, there's like a 90% chance I'll be looking for shorts off 64 Micron tomorrow. Unless it gaps away from this price, I'm still going to like this trade tomorrow till it loses. I will make that trade till it loses, and it hasn't lost yet.
All right. I'm just really, because I've got nothing else to do, I'm just really paying attention to NVIDIA and how it's moving. It's still sitting at that half mark.
Can you bet on it?
No.
Oh, are you in the chat?
I am, but I'm not logged into anything, so
Boo.
I can't bet on it. So anyways, NVIDIA is still sticking around, and then because I've got nothing to do, I'm going through the chat, obviously. It's like, what is a Rune trade? Well, Rune typically trades the futures when there's something to be done, nothing to be done there. And then earlier today, I was in a couple names, EBIX and Home Depot, that made some money. So we're good there. And how do I trade how do you trade the SQQs? Well, I don't know because I don't trade them, but it's an ETF, it's an inverse ETF. So typically how these work is that if the market goes down, then this will go up. NASDAQ is down 0.2, this is up 0.6. So it's triple levered, so it's going to be 3 times whatever in the opposite direction that the NASDAQ is. So if the NASDAQ's up 1%, then this is going to be down 3%. So that's how you're going to deal with the SQQ and the TQQ. These are useful for portfolios. If not everyone's comfortable with the idea of shorting in their portfolio, and or they may not be comfortable taking on futures positions, or they don't have the capacity or the margin for futures. So if you think the market's going to go down, then you can just buy up your SQQs and try to kind of play the downside without.
That one's triple levered.
This is triple levered.
That's triple.
Yeah, they're both. Even the TQQ is triple levered,
right,
I believe. Right. So they're both triple levered. So if you believe that they're useful in the inverse direction. So if you don't want to go short, but at the same time play on the short side, go for the inverse ETFs, and that way you can play the downside moves without actually having to short. I think that's where the usefulness is. The triple levered aspect of it, that's a dangerous game to play. Know the lever that you want to play with. I understand everybody wants to maximize their gains if they're right. If you do it long enough and you start with the Qs and you're good, then maybe go up to the triple Qs if you want to play that game. But if you're starting off in the triple Q or the TQQs or the SQQs, the triple levered ones, that's a dangerous game because remember, you can lose your money 3 times as fast, as much as you can make it 3 times as fast, but at the same time, you got to know what you're doing. So start with the QQQs. If you get really good at good with accuracy and whatnot, then move to the triple levered ETFs, and then you can play that game there. Spiders has the same thing, or SPY has the same thing as well for their triple levered options on the inverse and on the regular buy side as well.
Yeah, and when you're talking about that, we're obviously always talking about when you trade those, we're talking about short-term duration trades. Because because you have to worry about time decay when you're trading that. So
that's the thing with ETFs.
Yeah,
right?
It's one of those, like, I always make sure, because someone mentioned in the chat D-loaf there, you got to say that every single time, because you know, I don't want, like, that's not necessarily the thing you want to buy and hold for a long duration.
ETFs as a whole.
ETFs
that's just
as a
whole industry.
Those are good short-term trading vehicles. They're not necessarily always the best option for your long-term plays. And just, again, I'm not saying you can't or you shouldn't. It's just you always want to understand. So a couple of things. I did get out of Virgin Galactic. It took that top, so I'm out of that one. But also, if you're not signed into the chat, then just how exactly have you done this then?
I go into that computer over there and I click it.
So basically, how can we expect you guys to hit the like to get us over 1,000 if Arun doesn't hit the like by logging in? I'm just throwing that one out there.
That's why the people in the chat are going to make up for that difference.
Are they though?
Yeah, there's going to be some people that
you better log into that one.
We're going to get north of 1,000. There you go. There's 1,000, Neil.
No.
There's 1,000. I might be 1,001, but there's 1,000.
All I got to say is shout out to all of you. Congratulations to everybody that found the show and liked the show, but my man Arun didn't want to log. And you can't bet either. You could have bet on the NVIDIA thing. That's all I'm saying, too. It's a heck of a lot of fun because last I checked, the NVIDIA's coming under. Apple's not really moving.
It's at 275.30.
I'm flattening my Apple.
In the final minute, NVIDIA could break either side.
Get down.
But all we really care about is the official closing print. What the final print is on NVIDIA will determine whether you are right on your bet or not. Not what it's at 359.59. We need that final print. That's the official closing price, and that's what the whole bet is tied to. Right. So everyone looking for that mock final print. Let's see what that comes out to on NVIDIA.
And I keep getting these, like, a couple of people battled me and I never saw the result. Like, I hit accept.
Just assume you lose. Just assume you lose.
No, I don't know. So, like, there was a couple of people that challenged me in the chat for like 10 points. And I hit accept. I just have no idea what happened. I keep trying to look, and I'd look up, and I would never actually see the update. So, by the way, Tesla's the only thing I have left on. It can't seem to break down 184. Congrats if you had this one to the short trade. I think this was it. Like, you were either scalping Tesla 185 short to 184 long, or maybe this afternoon, or you were on Meta, great short off 16, into 214 half, another dollar there you could have had. But that's what you were looking for. Bears versus Bulls wants to duel me. You spelled it wrong. I don't know if it works. Try it again. I have accept locked and loaded, ready to go. I just put accept, so the second you do it, I'm going to get in there. How hyped am I for Bulls and Raptors on Wednesday? I love my Raptors. I'm definitely hyped about it. Play in. I don't know how far they can go, but getting one playoff series is pretty much all you can ask for the Raptors. I'm just more hyped about tomorrow, home opener for my Blue Jays. Unapologetically, I know basketball is probably a heck of a lot more exciting to most people, but I'm a baseball fan, baby, so I'm going to be at the home opener going absolutely nuts. It's my first chance to see Javier Baez live. He's one of my favorite players to watch. He might suck this year, but he's certainly a heck of a lot of fun to watch. So I'll be at the home opener. If you're at the Jays game, you'll probably see me on the third base line. I don't know which jersey I'm going to wear tomorrow. I haven't really decided that one just yet.
Is it going to be the one with the pineapple on it?
No, because they traded Lourdes Gurriel.
Doesn't mean you can't wear the jersey.
He's not on the team anymore.
Doesn't mean you can't wear the jersey.
I mean, it's not a jersey. It's like a... I might wear the Pina Colada shirt. It's a little worn. I wore that one a lot last year. Maybe I'll just wear it to the office tomorrow, and I'll wear it on the show. You guys know what I'm talking about. But Lourdes Gurriel, who was the Pina Colada guy because of his Pina power, because of his hairdo, he's now in the Arizona Diamondbacks. Like, I mean...
I just like the fact that you're going to wear a jersey with, or any sort of shirt with pineapples on it. That's all I really care about.
I don't have anything against pineapples. It's pineapple on pizza.
You kind of do. That's
no,
kind of...
I mean, come on, Arun. It's pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
Pineapples are delicious. They're amazing. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love it.
They're great on pizzas, too.
No, I mean, they're not, but...
They are.
You're entitled to your opinion, Arun.
I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Some people are just wrong. But
you know who's not entitled to? Right. You know who's not entitled to their opinion?
What's that?
People who don't like the show, who are on the show. That's who's not entitled to their opinion.
Fair point.
Exactly.
Fair point.
And now I get to hang that over your head today and tomorrow. So 1 minute to go here. I only have Tesla. I'm looking for 184. Just give me filled. It's not going to come down. I'll just take it out. Just broke 30. I'll just get out. So that's last one. Ring the register on Tesla, 185. That's all you needed, 185, 184. Or maybe that short on Meta. That's what was there for you out there. Not a lot of long breakouts unless you were looking at that Hexo trade along with Tilray. So shout out to that. Tomorrow should be a good one. Mahad is going to be on the bell. That's right. I'm sure you're looking forward to the Raptors playing game. Yeah, exactly. Like this city's going to light up. Obviously, I think we're against the Bulls, so DeRozan, that should be a heck of a lot of fun there. And if we can get one playoff series out of it, we'll probably put up a decent fight and lose. But, I like our chances in the playoff game. I'm just not sure about winning a playoff series for us. But get the camera off me. Let's get the countdown. It is Monday. Start to a big week because Wednesday is going to be huge. Market not necessarily up, but in 4, 3, 2, and 1... we can see what happens to NVIDIA, which
upside.
I hope you bet the over because NVIDIA closed at
79.
275, 79. Yeah. Clearly the over, so we get to pick the winner. Hey, I bet the short, so I lost on that one today. But yeah, good. Zach Levine, 40 points, eh? I had Zach Levine in my fantasy basketball league. Helped me win a championship, but I hope he doesn't put up 40 points against the Raptors. He'll be a challenge for us to guard. They got some good players on that team, but we'll see. A lot of people on our floor, they just care about the Lakers because they all have some decent odds bets on the Lakers to win it all, which could happen. With LeBron, anything can happen. How did we finish up there? I know the ES did well.
Good strength, yeah.
But how did we do trying to go green in the NASDAQ there, Brendan?
Yeah, last little push there gets it done for us, guys. It would appear anyways. 0.1 when all is said and done here for the S&P. 0.19 for the Dow, about 0.4 overall for the NASDAQ. Still stuck in the red, but nice little bounce back there late in the day for these two. Anyways, nice bounce as we were pointing out there at 3:30 for Bitcoin as well. Back to the upside we go. So good luck to start the week, guys.
Yeah, I mean, the NASDAQ got pretty close. I think the NASDAQ, I show the NASDAQ getting a lot closer, and that's a positive. So I'd say ending on strength, maybe not green, but it's going to be a big week. We talked about this. Pick your trades, pick your spots accordingly, because there were good opportunities bottom to top, but you did not get outside of the range. We never broke the highs. You had to find that support, so short at key levels. That's a theme this week, probably till we get to Wednesday, when we just have a whole host of information coming out, and that's going to be big. Whether it's the Fed minutes, whether it's CPI, it's going to be interesting. Yellen talks tomorrow at 11:30, so we'll definitely be watching out for that. Want to give a big shout out to, not just Sharif for the midday, but obviously Obi stepping in there. There he is. Give a wave, Obi. There he is. He's in the shot. We might as well. He's there all afternoon. We should ask him some questions sometimes. Now you're just going to play off it. I see how it is. Big shout out, of course, to the men on the board, the ones and twos. Mahad and Fahad doing a fantastic job. Brennan being the consummate professional that he always is. Sean is going to be back on Wednesday. I know he's enjoying his long weekend up with the fam. That's what it's all about. That's what we do it for. I'm obliged to say thank you to Arun, even though he didn't like the show today.
I didn't say that.
I'm just messing with you, man. I'm going to get some leverage out of that one. You got to hit the like, right? Yeah. And, but obviously, thank you, Arun, for dropping some knowledge, not just on ETFs and the futures, but also on some of the stock plays. I know you had actually, EBIX was maybe the best and easiest trade of the day, was shorting that pop there.
Yeah.
But any final words, Brendo?
Yeah, big week coming up, guys, as we were saying early on with Danielle Shea. A ton of data. We get the Fed minutes coming up on Wednesday as well. So more to come, even though today was kind of there or thereabouts.
Yes, sir. And thank you to Danielle Shea, as always, dropping some science and making sure that we can all learn a little bit of something about the options market and how she views maybe some swing plays. But it is going to be a good week. You know it. We are back at 8:30. This is Trader TV Live. That's Brendan. That's Arun. I'm Neil. We'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow.